Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. Your eyes do not deceive you. We are recording this on Friday, April the 26th of 2019. I can't remember if we have ever actually recorded this podcast on a Friday before. I think we started off on Sundays. We've done Wednesdays, Thursdays, Mondays. I don't know if we have ever done it on a Friday before. Maybe when something got pushed around and we had to make it up later.
I feel like maybe one time we did, but normally we're such busy social butterflies that we need to use the weekend time for.
Yeah, that's it.
We always have to do it, or else we lose our club time and all of our time hanging out at bars, dancing the night away to the new Shakira song.
Yeah, she's the most popular pop star out there right now, right?
She hasn't stopped being number one in my heart, I'll tell you that.
That's why she is in Zootopia, because she was, the most popular artist who was going at that time that movie came out.
And giraffes are, of course, the most sexy of all animals, hip-wise, which is...
She's a gazelle. Her character's name is Gazelle.
I don't even remember, Nick. Like, it's been like 4 years since I saw fucking...
The thing about that whole character that really bothered me was like, this is clearly an Adele reference, and it's Shakira. Like,
they're basically the same. Adele, Shakira. I get them confused all the time.
She did an okay job for what the character was. Anyway.
Now, Nick.
Manga.
No,
we have so much manga to talk about,
I
Chris.
have a quick aside, Nick. Now,
Fine.
Nick, once you start hearing what it's about, you're definitely going to be glad we jumped on this train. So, Nick, have you ever heard of post-nut clarity before?
As in, when you have gotten your jack off done, then you suddenly realize how everything in the universe truly is, and you've been doing with your life leading up to that single moment.
Yeah, basically. So, I saw Avengers Endgame last night.
Okay.
And I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not even going to mention anything to that regard.
I get to see it tomorrow. So
yeah, I just want to note that Avengers Endgame gave me like a nerd post-nut clarity that I have never had in my life before. I think I floated everywhere for the next 3 hours, and I was just walking into rooms telling people I love them, that they're great. It must have seemed like I was high. I firmly believe, Nick, that if you had approached me, I think I left the theater around like 9:30. That if you approached me like within the next like 2 hours, and had been like, "Hey, can I have one of your kidneys?" I'm like, "Man, just put me on ice, man. You fucking take that thing out. You deserve it, my man."
Well, you don't have a dialysis machine to hook me up to. That's cool.
Man, whatever, dude. It's fine, dude. Just roll with it. I have my little sister texting me a whole bunch of shit because apparently the Giants made a shitty draft pick and she's a Jets fan, so she was just shitting all over the Giants. Says kept getting tweets like, "What a stupid idiot your team is." So I was like, let bygones be bygones. You never really know how it's gonna go, I mean, maybe it took a little early, but maybe it was just the right place for him when all the universe kind of balances out. And then I woke up the next day, the post-nut clarity gone, and texted like, "Fuck you and your garbage, goofy-looking quarterback. You're still in the same division as the Patriots. You're never going anywhere. Eat shit, little sister."
And it was all gone.
Yeah, it's immediately gone now. We're back to Earth. But that's what it did.
I have not, out of people I follow on Twitter who have seen anyone say that they did not like it. The only things that I've said have been people saying that a bit of it, you have to just kind of be prepared for it to kind of throw a weird, unalluded to twist at you. So that it wasn't really set up. They just kind of do it. You just kind of have to accept it. But other than that, it's just kind of amazing. So
there's a couple stuff that would be like that. If a couple weeks down the line, we'll be a lot more free to sort of talk about this stuff. I'm not trying to like screw with anybody who's like, I haven't got a chance to see it. I'm not going to get to see it like for a little bit or whatever.
So after next Wednesday, when everyone has seen it. Literally everyone. There will be unborn children in Haiti or something like that who have been like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't really like the way that Captain America came across in it or something like that.
They're going to come out of the room and just be like, I thought Thor should have gotten more screen time.
I mean, the first one was all about him, so... All right.
I've seen it before. I'll save it again. More Hawkeye.
Or what Ronin, whatever the fuck he was called in this one. His hair looks stupid. Anyway, so we have so much manga to talk about this week. To let you guys know what's going on with us or with me. I'm at the end of a semester for school, and so I couldn't record stuff this Monday. So I asked Chris, hey, can we do something later in the week? And he's like, okay, how about Friday? And then we found out that Friday was when manga chapters were being released instead of next Monday, because, of course, Golden Week is coming up in Japan. It starts next Monday, and then it's going to go into the next week, too. So we don't have any new manga next Monday or the week after that. Instead, what we're doing is we're discussing all the manga that has come out in the past week and a half in one sitting. So that means doubling, and in a certain case, tripling up on the manga we're talking about today. Because for some reason, there were 3 chapters of Eden Zero. I don't know why, but here we go.
I feel like Hiro just got his juices flowing. He's like, yes.
He saw he saw Endgame a week early somehow. It was like, okay, I can do this.
He was also floating around. He was like, what if they're all evil?
What if humans are just dickheads for some reason, except for the ones who bathe naked in hot springs? They're fine,
except for the ones that I tell the story about. They have no flaws.
So we are going to get into this. In some cases, the chapters we doubled up on, it works out really well because the chapters are, connected and flow into each other. One of those cases is the one that we're just going to start the recap portion of the manga recap off with, which is My Hero Academia, which basically we get to cover an entire fight that was stretched across these 2 chapters in one go. So there we go. So the first one is number 225, Interview with a Vampire, featuring not Tom Cruise. So I don't know. There are a lot of
NPCs.
NPCs. Maybe one of them is Tom Cruise. Yeah. If there were an explosion and one of them was running away from it, then we could say, Tom Cruise. So.
Yeah. If it was hanging from a helicopter, be like, there he is again, 50-year-old Tom Cruise.
There he is, doing his own stunts because he's crazy. All right.
And yet they still won't give her an Oscar for it. I don't get it.
So we actually start off the chapter with Redestro talking with Giran, that was his name, who is still being held captive. And Giran claims no one's going to treat me like I'm, some damsel in distress here. Also, you guys are going to be in really big trouble if they unleash one of the Nomo in here. And Redestro is just like, they won't do that for multiple reasons. One, we haven't seen a lot of Nomu lately. 2, there was the high-powered one, yes, but there were also the weaker ones that it spat out, and they weren't really all that dangerous. Which I don't know why he bothered to name that one. He was just like, sure, there was a really powerful one, but the ones that it spat out to multiply were weak. Yeah, but it spat out more.
He's like, yes, but they all sucked.
But they were weak.
Imagine a boss in Sekiro, Nick, and it just spit out tinier, shittier bosses. Is that not a greater challenge?
And so, if things worked in video game terms and you were like, well, yeah, but there are minions that give you health power-ups after you defeat them, so you just have to go and fight them and when you're running away from the big boss. Like, yeah, sure, but that's not generally how that works in real life. No one gets a buff from fighting one of the little monsters. Anyway.
Sure?
So But the third reason he says is that Dabi flat out said when he was retrieving the Nomu that he was there to retrieve the Black Nomu. So that means it's valuable to them, which means that they have limited resources. So yeah, they're not gonna have a Nomu, and without Nomu, they're just a gang of hoodlums.
Yeah.
Pretty strong logic. We cut over to the League of Villains, who are, of course, fighting against everyone in the town. Each of whom has a fairly dangerous quirk. Like some random guy comes up and basically almost eats Spinner. It grabs one of his blades away from him. And then we focus on what it looked like we were going to get last chapter, which is Toga going up against the journalist lady, Chitose Kizuki, or just going off of her code name, which is much easier to remember, Curious. And Curious starts to monologue a little bit, and then the guy next to her ends up getting a knife in his neck, so she's like, oh, right, we're fighting. The entire fight is framed as her trying to get this interview with Toga, trying to basically get inside of her head because she's been researching her and her backstory and her history, and she wants to know the reason why she turned into this psychotic murderer that she currently is. And so she's trying to figure out what exactly was the event that caused this to happen. Meanwhile, we get Toga getting chased into a little deli. It looks like. If this were, a DC film, then there would be giant signs so you could know exactly what store that it was that they were, getting punched into. Toga catches her footing, and then an explosion goes off, as we learned that Curious's quirk is landmine. Basically, she's Gambit. She can charge things to explode. They're not very powerful explosions, but she can basically lay them anywhere.
Nick, I know we have a lot of chapters to discuss this week. Time for go on a tangent, though. So Gambit is one of those characters who I greatly enjoy. He's got like a cool aesthetic to him. It's very interesting. But he's also one of those characters that they explain too much, and eventually you reach the point where you're like, well, technically he can't just he can go more than that. He can charge kinetic energy into anything.
Right.
You sit there and you're like, why does he just do playing cards? You're like, I don't know.
Because I'm casual, mon ami.
He's like, oh.
I wear gloves with only 2 fingers on them, no?
I got
an extendable bow staff and wear weird pink armor.
I won a contest as a child to win 700,000 free packs of cards. I'm using them. Mama Gambit told me.
You kind of suck, Gambit. Yeah, but I had sex with Rogue, so shut up.
I'm like, hey, he's got us there.
Got me there. You're the best, Gambit. Good for you.
You're the best, G-Man.
So, a whole bunch of people try to close in on Toga after she's stunned from the explosion. She uses her mask, though, to send out syringes. And I'm not just talking like, oh, she's got like one syringe that shoots out. So no, she's got like tentacles that shoot out everywhere so that she can suck people's blood as they try and surround her. So pretty badass. Tries to use this, but well, Curious turned at least one of the people's blood into a bomb, so it explodes inside of Toga. Which, although it is a minor explosion, we saw the flames from before coming out of the deli when they went off. So that went off inside of her body. She should be dead, but superhero comic, it's fine. So it's fucked her up though, and she's like bleeding internally, probably. I mean, blood flies out of her mouth, but she was just drinking blood, so it's hard to tell. So Curious, starts rattling off some background information she knows about Toga. She knows what family she's from, what her birthday is. And she says, hey, did you see the news that day that all that happened when the media went to your parents wanting an explanation, when they interviewed your classmates? Because everyone was saying the same thing, that you were always this cheerful, reasonable, well-mannered girl, and they all wondered why. Why did you do what you do? Why did you abandon any hope of a normal life? And we get this flashback from Toga's perspective of herself in middle school, surrounded by a bunch of classmates. And she doesn't have her, bun hairstyle yet. And also, she has this weird black smiling mask over her face. But we also see that she spots this guy who looks a fair amount like Deku, at least in terms of hairstyle and general face that we can see. And he seems to be in some sort of a fight. He's got a bruised face and he's bleeding from the lip. And the mask that Toga is wearing starts to crack. Then we get a flashback from Curious's perspective, where Redestro encouraged her, like, hey, this writing that you're doing, you're just reporting on rumors. That's a bunch of bullshit. Why don't you, actually do research the way a journalist does? And then, that way it'll be good. You'll capture people's hearts by doing your fucking job. Oh, and I'm a zealot now because I am a real journalist.
She'll post up her first article and it's something like, vampire girl kills people. Click here more to find out why. Find out which Friends character she relates to most in this 12-question survey.
And then Curious is just like, but Redestro, have you seen the number of followers that YouTubers who report on bullshit get? I mean, come on. He's like, oh, good point. Okay, go ahead. Let's go.
That's
my commentary for the day. You should never listen to anything on YouTube, guys, or watches immediately go to 0. Curious demands an answer from Toga as to why she turned to a life of madness and abandoned a normal life. And Toga just says, a normal life? What's that? And she looks up with this weird smile on her face. And Curious is like, her face, it's just like a doll's. What kind of doll do you play with? She's got blood all over her face right now. It doesn't look anything like that.
Don't you remember Pamela Bloodface is the most popular doll when I was a kid? Oh, the 70s were such a time.
You can brush her hair and give her a fresh coat of lifeblood.
Blood for the blood god, little girls.
Da, 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 da.
Just slit your wrist over top of Pamela.
I love you, Barbie. Getting dizzy.
Mommy, am I supposed to be dizzy playing with this doll? Play with the goddamn doll, making supper!
Toga continues on by saying, you Liberation Army people are trying to make the world a wonderful place. So I like you. For me, this is my normal. And she gets this really demented smile on her face. And we see a flash of the flashback of herself holding a blood-dripping box cutter and seeing shards of the mask she was wearing fall off of her face. That brings us into the second chapter where we get, basically just flat out told exactly what happened in her past, but not really the reason why. So there are shots of some of the things that Curious was talking about, the interviews on the news from her parents, teacher, some classmates, how she had stabbed this boy named Saito and drank his blood through a straw while she was making this weird face. I don't think that we actually see her parents. I don't even think that the adults we see in this one shot are supposed to be them, because we see them talking through the radio outside of their home, because they obviously don't want to actually,
They're very rich too. They don't need to.
Oh, don't have to serve our commoners. Ooh.
I'm sorry our daughter turned out to be a sociopath. We'll make it better with the next one, alright? Catch you later.
And we see that Toga was basically...
Oh, you're barren? Then be gone with you. We'll have a dog then. And we'll dress it up and send it to the same prep school. Goodbye, everybody. We're the weird, eccentric, rich parents of this town.
We'll never have to answer for anything.
As we ride around in our enormous bicycle-like limousine.
Bicycle-like limousine?
We make him still pedal, but we still feel like we're getting the benefits of the exercise.
So is it a limousine, but the driver has to pedal it,
Yes.
or
It's basically that. Like
we're so rich that we just have a limousine as you would encounter on the Flintstones?
like have you ever seen those like bikes that are basically just mobile bars that like ride around the city and everyone pedals on them?
Oh yeah.
Like that. It's like seven other people who aren't the rich people, and they just sit there and drink while everyone else has to pedal and not drink.
So we see that Toga has had kind of been messed up from an early age, bringing her parents dead birds that she thought were cute. And the picture that we get from this and from what Curious is saying, because Curious is spot on with a lot of the stuff that she says, which is that basically everyone in society tried to beat the weird behavior out of Toga. Not literally, but they tried to suppress the odd urges that she had and just tried to force her into the square peg. And so she had this natural curiosity about other people, this fascination with other people, and she had a fascination with blood, and those in her quirk really led her to try and do stuff that was weird, like, drink a bird's blood because she thought it was cute. And because society would never accept that, according to Curious, she pushed all of that down, suppressed herself, and created this mask because she kept on engaging in all this deviant behavior, and people kept on telling her, you just have to act like a normal girl. And Toga doesn't...
What are you doing, Toga? You can't bite a bird and suck its blood just from out in the yard. We have living quails in the fridge. Use those. You're disgracing us.
Oh man, you're drinking a commoner bird's blood. We must get...
What are you doing attacking that boy with a box cutter? We own a knife company. Use one of those from the storeroom. We don't use the weapon of a box cutter, man.
If you're going to drink a boy's blood, at least drink the blood of the boy that we've arranged for you to marry, so as to keep the bloodline pure.
Have you even considered us when you do these things?
I don't think she's from a rich household, Chris. She looks like she had normal parents and a normal upbringing.
In my mind, she comes from the richest household in this entire city. And her parents just like, I understand if you wish to repress all of your deep-seated angst, but remember, we actually own many party masks. Please use those. They're more uncouth than the insidious smile you wear upon your face every day.
Curious, like, ends up approaching her parents after this and is like, what do you think about your daughter, what she's done lately? Oh yes, we've seen her running around with that ragtag group of so-called villains. They don't dress her nearly well enough. What are they even supplying her with? There should be diamond sparkles in all of her clothing, I'll have you know.
I'm much disappointed that it seems like she's forgotten her foundation routine. The good start to any face is foundation, my dear.
Also, she apparently has not been going to see our personal dentist. What's with her fucking teeth?
Oh my goodness. We bought 7 braces companies and none of it is paid off.
What? Murdering people? Has she been murdering any rich people?
How,
That was fine then.
how can we monetize that, dear? Dear, oh right, you've been dead for years, and I talk to a corpse in my living room. Yes, this is why we're not really upset with the murderous parts of it.
This went in a weird direction. So, just to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that, the Metahuman Liberation Front is full of assholes, when Toga tries to lash out at Curious because she's pissed off at her, Curious uses this odd device to basically make it's like a Mega Buster around her hand, and shoots/punches Toga in the face with it, which leaves a weird scorch mark on her. And she says, What you consider normal is not at odds with the Liberation Army's goals. In fact, you're living proof that our cause is righteous. You'll make the ideal sacrifice. We'll turn your death into a tragedy for the ages, and as a martyr, your tale will be a modern-day parable for the ages. And there's this weird shot of her reenacting the Pietà with Toga as Jesus and herself as Mary. It's one of those things that's like, right. Metahumans are assholes too, and they're weird, zealous assholes. So it's okay if Toga murders all of them in this chapter. It's cool. So Toga lashes out at her after managing to recover from being stunned, starts to run away, and Curious is like, I mean, you can't escape. And Toga is saying to herself as she grabs a capsule from her little utility belt that I'm not miserable at all. When I'm happy, I smile. And just like how everyone else kisses the people they love, when I love someone, I suck their blood. No, I'm not miserable. Not me. And she eats the capsule, and it's got some of Uraraka's blood in it. So she takes on Uraraka's appearance. So one of those things where it's like Toga's so crazy that you can't really tell, even with all this information, exactly what makes her tick. There's a little bit of insight here, but again, there's no real information as to why exactly she suddenly cracked and attacked this boy from her youth. Maybe it was just, her first love, when her first crush, and that was what caused her to snap. But we don't really know yet. Curious is confident that this isn't really going to make a difference because they're like, yeah, I mean, you've transformed and you're taking on a disguise, but we're just going to make sure that no one can you can't drink anyone's blood, so that way you won't be able to slip in and out of different disguises and stuff. So she's like, anyway, I'm sure she's basically just like, oh, it's so nice, it's so pitiable that you're just putting on this pretty face in your final moments. But Toga is thinking to herself about Uraraka and the fact that Midoriya trusts her so much, and she thinks, I want to get closer to the ones I love too. I want to be just like you. And there's another explosion as Curious tries to attack her with her weird Mega Buster thing again. And there's a bomb sound effect, and then she starts falling away from Uraraka and floating up into the air. Well, not Uraraka, but Toga, using Uraraka's quirk, because she can do that. And everyone is stunned as Curious starts floating off into the air, and so Toga dashes between them, touching them and causing them to float into the air too. And she just kind of says to herself as she does so, I'm using Ochaka's quirk. It's kind of hard to tell if she's actually, surprised or if she's just making a declaration. Again, it's hard to see into her head. Curious is surprised by this, of course, because all the information they had on Toga indicated that she could only just change her external appearance. But she thinks, oh, maybe the fear of death has allowed her to grow. And Toga says, nah, I just want to love, live, and die my way, my normal way. I want to be even more like the people I love. And she just thinks to herself, I've seen Ochaka's quirk in action, so I know how to use it. And she presses her hands together in Uraraka's release gesture, and everyone that she's caused to float into the air falls and dies.
It is a very brutal end. And you might think, like, maybe some of them are okay. And she very quickly, says on the next page, maybe it would have been better not to have killed them. Oh, well. You're like, all right.
So Toga is really beaten up, and she heads away from the site of this battle while thinking to herself, it's all right, because Yumi are going to destroy everything that we hate, right, Tamura. So this is a pretty big development. One of the gives us another reason to believe that Toga is potentially really, really dangerous if she can not only mimic people's appearances and disguise herself as anyone, but mimic anyone's quirk. It's seemingly, I would assume that it's probably going to work a little bit differently than the way Monoma's works, but that's something we're going to have to, find out in the future. There are still quite a few unexplored aspects of her to remain yet. But I really like the idea of her using, heroes' quirks in a villainous way. Like, Uraraka would never do something like this, just make someone float up in the air and then drop them to their death. And I like the idea of her copying other people's quirks and using them in really, really messed up ways like this. It also goes to show you, yeah, it's a really, really, really good thing that you didn't get any Adeku's blood, because holy shit, that would be terrible.
Yeah,
just have some, one for all blood so that she can mimic it.
Yeah. I think this was a cool sequence of chapters. I'm not super sold on Toga yet. I think part of it's what's interesting is that this is like a 2-chapter little story trying to see inside the mind of a character who fundamentally you really can't see inside of. Like, she's so detached from reality that you're like, I have a base idea what you're talking about, but you're also really insane. So I can never truly like grasp where you're coming from. And you're certainly not a good guy. You're certainly like, I see why you're with Shigaraki, because you're also basically as insane as he is. So I'll be curious to see if we see other glimpses of other characters like Spinner or Twice that are going to be along these same lines to be like, yeah, this is why all this depraved group are kind of with each other.
Yeah. Certain characters like Mr. Compress, Spinner, Dobby, if you get a flashback like this, you can be pretty confident in like, okay, this is what's going on with them. But Toga, to make the obvious comparison, has that, kind of Joker quality about her, where even if you have some insight into her, you can't really see exactly how that leads from point A to point B to point C and so on in terms of how she developed into the person she currently is, because she is just that messed up. And it's unreliable to see things from her perspective, which is the only way you could really get answers into certain events in her past. So. Okay, I think we'll do Food Wars and then Eden Zero, and then I think Boruto after that. So we're gonna do Food Wars.
That's sigh.
Someone in the chat as we were getting ready to start indicated that they think that Food Wars is like the worst series going on that we cover right now. And yeah, I think that it's like things were starting to look up a little bit as this matchup between Soma and Asahi started, but certain things that happened this week. The first chapter is all about Asahi's dish that he's presenting is chapter 308, He Who Conquers. The first thing that happens in it is that the judges actually show up, which include Courage and Decora. That's the blondie name. And some guy.
I believe we've seen him before.
We've seen him, but he's a guy, not one of the hot ones that Izami fucked. Yeah. There is, they're there to value the dishes, and I like that. What's her name, Ramaru or something like that. She's like, hey, Une, asked me to make sure that you remain impartial for this after the whole thing that happened at Totsuki. And she's like, oh, come on. Our judging will be entirely unbiased. Oh, my God. Who's that hottie in this meeting?
Who's that hottie? Boom, blotty. Get out of my way, skank.
Hey, a funny joke. It's nice to, have our guard lowered by that. Anyway, the dish that Asahi made is a fucking pie. He put all the stuff that he made for all the 5 different dishes into a pie. And there's shark fin in the pie. And carrots and nuts and mushrooms and shark fin. And everyone's like, oh, it's so fucking good. Yeah, it's so good. And the judges imagine themselves turned into, like, sexy monsters, I guess. And they're, like, in an RPG. And they want to join the protagonist's party, I guess. That is the visual that we get. Also, Decora's boobs look really, really weird in this one shot. Anyway. So then they point up into the stands where a whole bunch of people are having their clothes whipped off because people are like, oh my God, it's the gifting. It must be Lady Mana's gifting. It has reached us all the way down here. Undeniable proof that she finds this dish delicious. And Asahi gives this big triumphant arm spread pose like he's Tony Stark at the beginning of the first MCU film. And he's like, this is the pinnacle of the blue. This is what it looks like to be the first seed of the next generation of the culinary world. As clothes explode off of everyone flying into the sky behind him. It's like, yeah, okay. Good for you. You made a pie.
It doesn't even sound like he made a pie. I really need to like, because I kept trying to like describe this, and it looks like he made a pie soup. Which
Basically, yes.
I cannot comprehend how that is any good. Like, I'm sure there's an example of this that's fine, but they're like, it seems like an awful dish to serve to people because, like, you cut it open and the pie, like, the soup's just gonna fall out. Like, I don't understand how you serve this to people. Like, just from all the images, it looks like there's a lot more liquid than anything else. So, yeah. I don't know.
I do like the detail as we start the next chapter, which is 309 True Intentions, that just a bunch of people in the stands had robes prepared for when people's clothes fly off. So it was like, here we go, here, take a robe. Take a robe. Stop being naked. There.
You want to be like that one dude who was just like, I heard that it happens. I don't know why I thought today would be the one day to not go without underwear. I don't know what I was thinking. Now I'm being arrested for public indecency because my clothes were forcibly taken away from me. I didn't get any soup pie.
Yep. One of the onlookers is actually very surprised by this. It's the old judge that we've seen a bunch of times before, and he says, "The gifting is a talent only one with Nakiri blood can perform. So then why?" And that strikes me as an odd statement because like, he knows Mana's up there. So I don't know if he's like in denial or if he knows something that we don't. Because I will say, we don't flat out get confirmation that Mana enjoyed the dish. Like, she doesn't say, it's like, yeah, that was good. That was tasty. So I don't know. Like, the Une has the dish and she's holding it while Mana's looking down at things. So I don't know. Anywho. We get a flashback from Erina's perspective of, basically when she was a kid and, she was progressing as a cook, even at 4 years old. Senzaemon's like outer robe flew off, indicates, oh, wow, he's, that's a real sign of her progress. But then when she presented it to her mother, she just said, it's an excellent dish. You did a good job. And Erina thinks, she always praised my cooking, but she never has said it was delicious. So, yeah, she never managed to do the thing that apparently Asahi has just done, basically. Then Alice is here, Chris.
Cool.
She's here.
My favorite character's here to talk about how exciting things have gotten, right?
Yeah, to talk about how things have been lately. Yeah. Hisako has arrived there with her. They were basically placed on a task by Senzaemon and Joichiro, and to do something important. They went to go and retrieve someone. Azami!
Whoa, my favorite character's returned.
Yay.
He's here to be an enlightening, because you know what my favorite thing, Nick, is? I love it when cool characters who are bad guys come back and redeem themselves as heroes. And they decided to give us a flashback we definitely should have gotten during the last arc. I don't know why the fuck they waited until now to do it. It really, really detracts from everything the zombie did the last arc.
So, okay. So Azami is like, I have no right to be here. I am now humble and redeeming myself villain instead of out and out bad guy who was shown sadistically torturing my daughter for her entire upbringing. Senzaemon says, what you perpetrated at Totsuki cannot and should not ever be forgiven. However, it's like, hold on. Stop right there.
Yes. Full stop.
Also, not just a Totsuki, to my granddaughter.
Really? Ironically, it shouldn't even matter what the fuck he did at Totsuki. Technically, everything he did there was actually very, very legal. But abusing his child was certainly not.
So, Joichiro says, your reason... actually, this is Senzaemon still talking, sorry, but it's a picture with Joichiro. So he says, your reasons for doing what you did may have been, well, your true intention was to save everyone, correct? Not just Joichiro, who was lost to the storm, but also Mana and Erina. Flashback. And So we see
And
Azami.
it turns out Azami was the hero of the story all along.
We see him after Saiba has just left, and he's thinking to himself, "I felt hollow inside. I felt like losing everything. So I performed my duties on the council as expected of me. I traveled the world, but no matter where I went, my heart remained cold, and my cooking became callous. And then I met her, the woman with the divine tongue, Mana. And we see a young Mana who does look a hell of a lot like Erina when she was young, but that makes sense. And she, makes the same kind of weird comparisons that Erina would do because with her bizarre ability to, just taste things in a way that no one else does. But she noted after she tried Azami's dish, it's disgusting. There isn't a hint of passion in it. You are presently dealing with something that caused you rage or grief. Then turn those emotions into a gorgeous feast of haute cuisine. That is what a true chef would do, a chef who is worthy of expressing the ideals of Totsuki. And so Azami kind of they basically were shown to have this sort of Soma and Erina relationship, which is weird because it's Azami and not Soma. They were, annoyed by each other at first. Azami was determined to, have her be impressed. They spent some time together, spent some time even cooking together. But, and he learned more about her and stuff. And he basically realized that she was on the same path that Saiba was. She's standing in the center of a dark and fierce storm, trying to light the correct path for everyone else to follow. What she did was risky, dangerous. She could be hurt, worn down, or worst of all, swallowed by the storm. And over time, like they grew closer, of course, as they worked together and cooked together. And so he basically was determined to not let what happened to Saiba happen to her because she had given him back his passion for cooking. And so he was like, with us together, we will, do this thing. We will blaze a path for everyone to follow. But then she had her first, health scare, and apparently this was like his ambition even up to the point where Erina was born. But when she had her first collapse, then he realized he had failed. So he realizes that because Erina has the same divine tongue, the same thing that happened to Saiba, the same thing that happened to Mana is now going to happen to her. So using the divine tongue, I will change the way things are. I will form a plan to bring true gourmet to the world, and then I can calm the storm, create an easier world for them to live in. And that will mean a demanding training regimen for Erina, but it will be all worth it if I can steer her in the right direction and help her avoid the despair that swallowed her mother. So in the end, I did it all for you, Erina.
So I won't apologize for the years of abuse.
He doesn't.
No,
Doesn't apologize.
No point where he's
He just says, yes, he just says like, I failed. I tried to do this and I failed. I couldn't save even one of them. And so he says like the best option is for Asahi to win because he has, a freakish talent that can actually overcome this problem. And then Joichi was just like, do you really believe that? And that's it.
So let's just take it on the surface that this is exactly what we're getting. That this is like the actual story that's always been planned for Azami. Why wouldn't we have gotten this during the last fucking arc when this was relevant? Like, this was like, hold on, everybody. I know we're in the middle of tasting the dishes. Everybody stop. Azami has to come back in and explain his backstory. And, like, everyone in the room's kind of turning around like, why? What? Like, it doesn't change what's happening in any way, shape, or form in any part of this, like, narrative right now. But here it is. And then what we get is just him being like, I was very mean to my daughter, abusive, quote unquote, some might say. But what you don't understand is I was doing it for
ripped her away from having any human contact with peers of her own age that she enjoyed spending time with.
So I was a quote unquote monster. But what you don't understand is I was trying to solve her mother's issue of. And here's the thing I'm not entirely sure about, because Food Wars has kind of spoken in metaphors and storms a lot recently, which you kind of have to decipher a lot. I guess because she has the divine tongue, everyone keeps bringing her food. And she's constantly tasting it. And you'd assume that if she if her taste is that valuable, she could just be like, well, I'll just only taste stuff that I know is like pretty good. Like I'm not gonna taste every piece of food that comes by or something like that. Apparently, it's so daunting though that she's reached a point where food has lost its taste to her or whatever. And you're like, okay, fine, fair enough. Let's work with this for the story. His solution is like, we'll create the most rigidly conformed chefs, and that'll fix the problem because everyone's cooking will be the exact same way. And you're like, I guess that's kind
and
of
that way nothing will be interesting.
Yeah, you're like, I guess this is kind of a solution if you squint your eyes and look at it and tilt your head to the side a little bit and, you know, kind of view it through a mirror like that. Like, it kind of looks like a solution. Nah, I don't know what they're doing with Food Wars at this point. Just end it at this point. I don't know.
It's pretty terrible. Like, this is the thing that, like, if for this arc to like go down in history as one of the like great bad shonen arcs, it needed a moment as straightforwardly that is bullshit as this. So at least it's so bad that it's, you know, memorable in that aspect now. Kill it.
Yeah.
So 8-0.
All right, let's talk about the 3 chapters of Eden Zero that we have for whatever god fucking reason. Starting with chapter 40, Operation C7. So Hermit, Nick, does not trust humans.
Why? Because some of them were dicks and evil for no reason.
It is an astonishing story to explore, but it all comes back to this Dr. Mueller, who is like, we've developed an accelerator, and it's aimed at Planet Hook, a planet comically made of gears and giant hooks that is exclusively used for discarded robots, basically. And they need help. So we're going to send them ether. And you're the only robot smart enough to help us figure this out. So there's a whole like collage of different stuff happening, like where we jump back to the ship. The only thing that's worth noting is Moskoy tries to push the button again, and sister stops him. I forget the names of some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just becoming the only...
Sister Witch, and Hermit are the 3 robot ladies.
Yeah. I just keep thinking Sister's not the right one because it's too on the nose, but I guess that's the point. Anyway, Hermit is doing these crazy calculations for this. And the entire time she's like, I wonder if Dr. Mueller will be my friend at the end of this. And the other researchers...
Will you be my friend? Of course we will!
Yeah, the other researchers are like, but we're already your friends, including the one robot researcher. And eventually she meets him, and he's like, I gotta go to Planet Hook. They're sending all the robots there. And she's like, that's weird. Shouldn't I go too? He's like, they didn't say they needed you for some reason. I wouldn't question it. Keep on doing the good work. And you're like, obviously they couldn't be so cartoonishly evil as our sole goal is to destroy an entire planet full of robots.
When this guy first showed up, like 2 chapters before this, and she was like, of course I'll help you. I was immediately thinking like, well, he's going to like, you know, his plan is evil. But then as it was like, everyone's going on this planet, literally I'm just thinking like, okay, there's no way in hell it would be something as obvious as they put all the robots on this one planet just so that they could blow it up because they're racist. I mean, sorry, robotics or whatever, and just evil for no reason. No, that's it!
they are clean and dry. The most mustache twirling evil villains we've seen in this series. And this is a series that already has like very cartoonishly evil characters. That was their sole goal. They're human superiorists. I don't know what you'd call them. They want all robots gone. They used her as basically a tool to get the calculations right. Like your Pentium 4 super brain was able to calculate exactly what we needed to blow up the planet full of robots. Ha ha ha.
Now, I love that when they blow it up, the guy's just like, yeah!
We did! Yeah! Like high-fiving each other. Woo! So they killed all the robots, and he's like, get rid of her. She's a gross, icky robot. And then a guy comes by, and he's like, wait a minute, Dr. Mueller. Perhaps we should use her for our others' experiments. He's like, ooh, sounds fun. So we don't find out what happens with that until the next chapter, which is taking a second to load on my screen. 41. That's just a picture of Rebecca's boobs. Fireworks.
Before we get into that, I want to make a note that like they were having this conversation at the beginning. It's like, oh, we could be friends after all of this, and I'll give you like a back rub and stuff. And the signifying image of like she was betrayed. It was all a lie. Is the handmade coupons that she made for like coupons for a shoulder massage falling to the ground.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, so they kept Herman alive for their grand new experiment of punching robots. Apparently, I don't know what else they're doing. They take her apart and
we're evil.
They take her apart and like hang her from the ceiling, just like her torso up. Then use her ether to empower the scientists, who then just punch her along. This is apparently the experiment. This has apparently been going on for years too, and it ends abruptly because like the crime police show up and they're like, I thought it was weird when that planet full of robots got exploded, and it turns out you had a gun pointing right to it. I guess we solved this problem right in the nick of time. And you're like, I think that robot's been getting punched for about 4 years. I'm trying to figure out what the ends of the research goal of the robot punching experiment was.
There is no goal. They're cartoonishly evil, Chris. That's it.
It may have just been to figure out how long they can punch a robot.
It's so bad that you can't hate it. Like, it's just so bad that they're so dumbly evil that who
like you're like
how can you be pissed off about this?
I'd almost feel like when she's explaining this story to everyone else in the crew that they would just be like, I mean, are you making some of it up? Like, look, I always believe victims, but I'm like, they just sound so cartoonishly evil. I have trouble believing that this exists.
What happened?
They just punched you for years? That's it. They just kept punching you? I can't even comprehend what the goal of that would be.
I'm just imagining, like, it's the scientist punching her, pong, pong, and it like cuts outside, and like the sun sets, pong, pong, sun rises, pong. It goes for like 3 years, and just like continuous
like,
night and
changing. He's like, you'd think my arms would get tired, but they don't. God, I love punching robots. So after the crime police show up and they're like, hey, this guy was doing a crime. Let's police him. They're like, we freed this robot. Come with us. And she's like, nah, and just walks out.
And one of the police is just like, yes, just...
One of the officers feels poetic and is just like, Commander, should we let her go? They're like, she's already free. Nothing left to do with her, boys. Let's let her choose her own place to die. And you're like, sir, we're the police. Aren't we supposed to
Didn't we like get her attention and psychological evaluation? No, she's free now. Free to walk her own path.
I love...
Anyway, I heard that there was a kidnapping, and we've got to go and save the little girl that they kidnapped. That was 10 years ago we got that report, but I'm sure she's fine.
And when we get there and she's sad, we're just going to let her wander off too. She knows what she needs now more than we do.
She knows her own way home.
She was 2 when she was kidnapped, but like an elephant, kids never forget when they're kidnapped.
I'm sure that an entire childhood full of abuse and confusion has given her the life skills to make her way back home and find her way in the world.
I love any time an authority figure explains something in a poetic way. Like, you watch Solo, right? And when he goes up, he's like, name, Han. What's the last name? No last name. The guy like stops and looks, tilts his head off to the side, thinks, Han Solo, then, and writes it down. You're like, is that proper procedure? Like, that anyone who comes in with the last name, you're like, what one haven't I used a while? Luke Aloningston or something like that.
I mean,
Kyle One Man.
you find out it's like, no, you see like Anakin and Shmi, they got their names because Shmi didn't marry, so she didn't have a name. She was born a slave. But uh, when when she had Anakin, it made her feel like she had walked on air. So she decided that their name should be Skywalker, and so that was why. That you don't need to explain everything.
No, there's no
Anyone
reason.
in the future who makes a Star Wars film set before the original trilogy, you don't need to explain everything. It's
But
okay.
why is it Obi-Wan? Maybe it was just originally Obi.
Why did he call
But then
himself
he,
that?
but then he won a fight, and they started calling him Obi-Wan, and then they were like, it's just like a game of telephone. It devolved over time.
So you imagine it's like he shows up on Tatooine and uh, someone's like, "What is your name, sir?" And he's like, been a while since I've set foot on this planet. Ben. Okay, got it. You're Ben."
Someone's just like, I understand he's Jabba a Hutt, but what made him Jabba the Hutt? And you're like, we don't need this. We don't need this story. All right. Anyway, this dramatic flashback ends as a bolt is about to fall on Hermit's head. It's a dramatic two panel thing of like this bolt's about to fall on this robot's head, and then
It's a sizable screwballs, admittedly.
It is very
It would
large.
hurt.
And obviously, when an object's dropped from pretty high up, it can be very dangerous. But Shiki just fucking takes it to the head. I'm not really sure the physics of it. It looked like it was right above
a way to manipulate this object's gravity. Bonk.
And Hermit just doesn't want to deal with fucking humans anymore. But Rebecca goes up and is just like, hey, yeah, I know those other humans were like
this in a way that's not stupid for a second. Okay, it's still stupid, but it's not Shiki stupid.
Yeah. She's like, hey, I understand that what happened to you before was like off the walls cartoonishly evil, but you have to understand nobody else should be like that. I'm still a little look again, I believe you. I believe you may have been on some kind of drug and dreamt those up, because I have trouble believing someone that evil exists. Like, it's so cartoon. Anyway, you're with friends now, and they all are like, hey, yeah, we all like robots, except when they get to Weiss, like, I don't know, Weiss hangs out here. Anyways, want to join the crew? And she does. She smiles. Well, she cries first. She's like, because I want to be friends with everybody. And they're like, yeah, we are friends.
Like, you don't really hate humans. You want to like them. And she's like, you're right.
She's
like that was an easy breakthrough.
Yeah, you're like, interesting. The only humans you ever seemed to meet immediately were the most racist and vile of human beings possible. But I don't know, deep down, I guess it works. Whatever. She gets her shit together. She powers up and she saves the Eden Zero, and then she sends it over to Spider, and she's like, haha, you're about to get hit with our super long range cannon. And Spider starts screaming because he's just a little bitch boy nerd, Nick. He pees his pants and starts crying because that's what nerds do. They can't stand up to it.
This is such a weird moment. Like, to conclude all of this, like, I mean, I can say, with confidence, like, okay, the stuff in the first chapter is really cartoonishly weird. The stuff in the beginning of the second chapter is like, well, that is a way to reach this, I guess. That feels very dissatisfying. And then she makes him think they're going to shoot their weapons at him, and instead sets off a bunch of fireworks. He pees his pants when the explosions from the fireworks go off. And everyone's like, ha 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 ha! He thought that we were going to shoot him when we were just setting off fireworks for some reason.
They got him. Got him!
Also, I'm pretty sure that fireworks wouldn't look like that if they were in space because, gravity wouldn't affect them.
Yeah, but we just had a planet that was a bunch of gears combined together with two giant, pirate hooks bent out, jetting out of the top and bottom. So
what am I doing? What am I doing? Bothering to?
I'm just assuming space works differently here.
Anyway, Hermit's happy now. She's smiling.
Hermit's good. So we're gonna jump over to page 4 or chapter 42, Pino's Dream. We start with a tour of the ship. Who gives a fuck? We're not following that.
Admittedly, I will say I like that we have it. because it feels less like Hero threw all these weird rooms into this ship. It's like, no, here is the actual layout of the ship. Is like, all right, fair fucks to you. Yeah, fine. Yeah.
Fair fucks to you.
Yeah, you actually figured out how they all fit into this stupid ship. So okay.
I like that. So we get like a little bit at the start where Sister's kind of chastising Hermit for taking so long to get her shit together, like a good friend would, you know. After she starts to recover from deep-seated trauma, she's like, "Hey, couldn't you have gotten your shit together earlier? You know, before you saved us without any real kind of consequence or tragedy." And you're like, nothing happened. I don't know. I'm angry. I'm gonna shit all over you. And the only thing that's amusing from that is just that Hermit threatens to push Moscoi's button, which, look, I usually shit on Hero because nothing is built up. Everything is always, like, set up and paid off immediately in his kind of series. But whatever fucking happens when you push Moscoi's button has me fucking intrigued. Because they've been teasing this shit already for like 2 months. And I'm like, this is like the end game of fucking Hero payoffs where he's just like, just you wait. 11 years later, you're going to get something from this. So there's a bunch of cutaway scenes.
Fan service scenes with Rebecca and Homura are naked and they talk. And Homura talks about her master and that she wants to train, and she tries to spar with Rebecca in the bath. And done with that scene. Do the only good one in this chapter.
Yeah,
Thanks.
So we see that Weiss and Shiki are over at the kitchen where I guess they have a mechanical chef that just makes whatever food you want at any one point in time. Seems like something that needs more explanation, but cool. I guess they have it and just haven't shown it until now. But they're like, yeah, it's super cool. Don't you want it, Pino? And Pino's like, I have no taste buds, so I will just eat this energy-restoring jelly that all robots drink. And she's like, huh. Everyone's like, I kind of feel bad for you. Like, it's pretty tough. And she's like, don't worry about it, actually, because I found a dream. I'm going to be human. She kind of smiles. And Weiss
big, like full-page spread of her, like, looking at it as, I'm going to be human. Really cute.
Weiss is very apprehensive to this. He's like, think about it is, you know, it's a sticky, wow, like, about that. Shiki's just like, yep, I bet you will. And she's like, yep, and then when I'm going to eat all the curry burgers I can until I'm stuffed.
It's super cute.
I do like it because Shiki is very supportive of her dream, which is a very Shiki thing to do. And I do like how Weiss is also like, I feel bad because she seems very happy about this, but there's no way to turn a robot human. And then he thinks like, well, there is that rumor about Mother and being reborn, so maybe. Then we cut over to a planet called...
By the way, this is the most likable that Shiki has been in a long time. Yeah. Because, like, hey, here's this person that we know he has a connection to, and she believes in this absurd out of the realm of possibility thing, and he's just like, I'll bet you will, and then we'll, get to spend time together while you're a human, and it'll be great. It's like, aw, supportive friend, Shiki.
Yeah.
So...
we cut over to the Brown Sea where, what's her name? I forget if we actually got it.
The spy who changes her face.
Yeah, Hot Spy is hanging out at the beach. She's actually at an ice cream beach, apparently. I didn't notice this before until I looked and I was like, that's a giant ice cream cone in that ocean. Oh, okay, that's the whole gimmick here.
Do you think she's supposed to be getting a tan? Because I don't really see what the point of it would be if she could just change her appearance at will.
I just think Hero wanted an excuse to draw her in a bikini. I don't know if there's supposed to be any more logic than that. Like, in universe, her example is, I feel a strange need to go to the beach in a bikini for some reason. And then she did it.
Also, I better, like, bend over and imagine there's, like, a camera right here and, like, make my boobs or butt or feet look as big as possible for that one point of view.
The person who she talked to back inside of the game is like, hey... I know
dude.
Yeah, he's like, hey, you fucked up your identity. You didn't fuck up mine too, did you? And she's like, oh my gosh, like, no, I didn't. I would like never do that. You like worry way too much. And he's like, you're a fucking joke. You're a fucking clown. You know that? And then he basically hangs up. It's like, he like gives like a little thing where he's like, sorry, catch you later, milady. And we cut over to fucking Elsie, who's like, hey, are you, calls up Jesse. He's like, Jesse, at your games again? And he's like, sure am. Your time's almost
That's
up,
right.
Elsie.
That's right, Captain. I was just masturbating in here, not plotting your demise.
She's like, good. I think. I don't know which one I want more. Then we see Spider, who's stomping his way down around the warship Burial Goer, which looks like a space station with a bunch of like crab legs and random shit kind of at the bottom of it. Seems interesting. And he's going over to see Draken Joe, but he's stopped by a lady who could stretch her body around, named Maria. And Spider just makes
not Kagura from Fairy Tail.
No, very different. Yeah. And Spider just makes a bunch of comments about how hot she is and starts fondling her leg. And he just walks past her and thinks, one day I'm gonna get to fuck you. That's that scene.
What a great character.
And we walk inside, and there's a robot cowboy and a mask man and a guy with the bottle in his throat as Draken Joe's about to smash his fucking bottle and say, I'm going to make some money off this, I guess.
How?
I don't know. Because Spider's like, I got to talk to you. He's like, what you're talking about make me more money than what I'm doing now? He's like, I don't know what you're doing.
You had to buy the bottle. So
he's like, is this some kind of fetish porn? Because that does make actually a good deal on the internet. There's not a lot of it around.
Can you get in on that?
Yeah. I'm ready to do some pretty degrading stuff to myself. I'm pretty okay with it.
Let me just get my pants off here.
So, yep, that's what we got there. He kind of looks a lot like a former Fairy Tail or a hero character. I can't think of who, but he reminds me of somebody. Regardless, we see Draken
about
Joe.
the eyes, yeah. All right, let's move on to Boruto, number 34, training. So we started to be at the very tail end of the fight between Naruto and Delta. Delta's completely down for the count. Kawaki insists that they should finish her off, and Naruto's like, well, I need, to bring her with us for interrogating. But then Delta starts going, and it's like, oh my god, she's self-destructing, and Naruto grabs Boruto and Kawaki and throws them out of the way, and she blows up. Yep. Kajin Koji is observing things and it is like, oh, well done, Uzumaki Naruto. You have great power, but not enough. You will need much more to take Jigen down. Karma, knowing its secrets, will be the key to unlocking Jigen's weaknesses, and I bet that you, Uzumaki Boruto, hold the key. I am plotting against my own villain group because I am the most important character in that group currently. They take one-armed Kawaki to see Katasuke. Katasuke says that, yeah, I can make a prosthesis. It's not, I can't, completely restore his hand because that technology is beyond me. But I can, make a prosthesis at least, but I don't have one prepared. So Naruto's like, don't you have one of the prototypes for one of my arms sitting around here? And Katasuke's like, well, yeah, but I mean, I developed them to only work off of the individual's chakra. So you would need your chakra in order to do that. And Naruto's like, I got this. And he takes the prosthetic arm and he sticks it onto Kawaki and he infuses it with some of his chakra. And yeah, it's the artificial hand scene. He's like, oh, I can move it now. And so, yeah, he's just sharing his chakra so that Kawaki can use this hand. Boruto points out, of course, that that's going to mean that he's going to have to expend chakra on this. And Naruto's like, I send doppelgangers everywhere all the time anyway, so whatever. So, but he does point out, whenever I'm asleep, then you're not going to be able to use the hand. And when Kawaki's like, hey, are you sure about this? Naruto says,
remember, and I'll be able to feel it every time you're masturbating. Just know, I'll know what you're doing.
All right, time to switch hit.
Time to be a lefty.
Naruto's just like, remember, chakra is a force that surrounds us and penetrates us. And he just says, like, this is just, an example of what I was saying before about how chakra is a connection between everyone. And the scene ends on a joke. And then we cut over to the villain's hideout, where the camera that Delta had launched lands in this little pedestal between a series of Deltas who, one of which, there are like these 3 canisters, one of which is empty and the other 2 contain Deltas. and one of them hops open, and Delta comes out. Not too surprising. She's really pissed off about being defeated and stuff. Like her consciousness transferred into this new body. Would not be nearly as shocking if we hadn't had all the stuff with pain and Naruto prior to this. But this is much more of a it's machine stuff than anything. So we get to see a few more of the members of this group. But not a whole lot really happens yet. Jigen is this kind of monk-looking guy that's in a white robe. And everyone's kind of curious about what the hell Kashin Koji is doing because they don't really know what the hell he's up to because he's plotting against them. Delta reports, however, what she learned about everything, such as the conversation between everyone, and they say hey, there's no karma in his body, so what's going on with all of this? And she explains I saw their karmas resonate with each other, and their powers got amplified. So he definitely has karma inside of him, and everyone's like, really? And then realize Momoshiki, so you managed to leave behind a vessel as you died. We get this shot of Momoshiki, that Otsutsuki guy from the early part of the series, manipulating Boruto's body like he's a puppet. So, he is possessed by an evil dude, apparently. We'll see.
Yeah.
That's all the important stuff, the plot relevant stuff that happens in the chapter, but the second part of it is where all the good stuff happens, in my opinion.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Yeah. We basically see Kawaki getting used to living in Konoha. First, when everyone was gathered back at home, Kawaki is like, "Hey, I'm sorry about this stuff," and Naruto just says, "Hey, don't worry about it. You helped to protect me and my daughter, so this is me paying you back for the hand that you sacrificed." And Kawaki's like, "Well, Kara attacked because of me, and you protected me," and Naruto's like, "Look, you just kind of remind me a lot of me when I was a kid, and that makes me want to look after you." I'm assuming he means when he was in chapter 1 and prior to that, because I don't know if I see any of the other comparisons there, Naruto. you weren't a wanna be a cool kid, cut your hair, stupid loser, but
he's like, I just want to say that I did this before Hawkeye revealed it in the trailer. I had my big stupid mohawk haircut first.
No, you didn't. Shut up. No one reads Marvel comics.
They make those? They make comic books of that?
Kawaki asks for Naruto to train him, takes him up on the offer he made before, and Naruto's like, all right, so if you really want to, now you're my student. And we see basically a montage from that point of Kawaki getting used to ninja life, intercut with him trying to repair the vase that he had broken. It seems as though every time that Naruto is asleep, he stays up and uses his one remaining organic hand to try and put it back together. But we see stuff like he hangs out with Boruto and Shikadai and some sort of pun. And he opens up a pack of the card game they collect. Oh, and he got a fourth Hokage Minato card, and everyone's like, whoa! And Chocho is like, he's so cute. And Kawaki says, this dude's a Hokage.
Cool dude.
This dude. Boruto gets another Naruto card, and when Kawaki sees he's upset about it, he's just like, here, I'll trade you this one if you want. And Boruto's like, I got my very first other than dad Hokage card. There's a random shot while this conversation takes place where it cuts over to Sarada as she's looking on. I like the very much just the artist just felt like drawing, a natural pose kind of thing that looks weird, and you don't see a whole lot of people sitting this way in manga shot. So it's like, arms crossed and legs crossed and everything like that. So we see him sparring with Naruto, practicing with Sarada and Boruto. trading cards with Boruto and his friends again. For some reason, this card game is super important.
It looks like they're actually playing the fucking card game, which is very impressive.
I tap a land and bring out Seventh Hokage Naruto.
And attack your life points directly. He's like, I fucking hate these first turn combo kills. This game's fucking jank bullshit.
Ever since Link Summoning got added to this game. Repairing the vase, practicing jutsu, repairing the vase, hanging out with Naruto, repairing the vase. I finished repairing the vase. Trying to test it by pouring water into it. Shit! There's a piece missing. Alright. It's not in the bag with all the parts in it. Maybe it's down in the living room, and he starts to leave the bedroom. But then he hears a voice behind him. He looks behind, and he sees Kurama's giant flaming head floating in front of him. And he has a relatively reasonable reaction, which is just thinking to himself, what the heck is that?
Huh. Interesting.
And Kurama's just like,
I shouldn't have been sniffing this glue for so long.
All right, where did this part go? Right here.
He looks like in his mind the face is perfect. When you see it, it's like this hideous, deformed claw reaching. And Otto, whatever your stupid name is, here's your face. Give me that glue.
So you're done with the super glue? Not even close.
I'm never gonna be done with it. Buy me more.
The fox told me I can't leave.
The fox speaks to me.
Kurama tells him he can't he can't stray from Naruto's side. That's the end of the chapter. I actually really like the second half of the chapter of Kawaki just like getting used to ninja life, because for one, it's really weird to just see, characters in Naruto just being kids, particularly like such an edgelord as Kawaki. But it's also very important to establish with this character, who's going to presumably be very important going forward, that we see, he's not just this eternal, like, I just do what I want or get by. I don't trust anyone. It's like, you need to kind of open that up a little bit so that we actually care what happens with him and see why other characters care what happens to him as all this shit is going on in his life. So,
yeah.
Also, giant floating Kurama head, so that's cool. All right. Oh. It's okay. It's first lap's done.
Now you just gotta talk about Hell Warden
Higuma,
which somehow is ending after Annihilation.
Well, because it aired after Annihilation.
Didn't it start? I thought it started before.
1 week after.
That must be why.
That's it. It's probably going to end as soon as we get back from Golden Week, honestly. A lot of stuff happens in these 2 chapters, and it's all really just like, we need to get this series to an ending point, it feels like. So I'm not going to go into very much detail on this, just in terms of like, our time is better spent on other series. So Higuma's parents die. Not parents, but his dad and aunt die. And Akagane does the whole thing where he's like, I will come see you when your child turns dead, and I'll kill you then. And we get some narration that explains young Higuma had been able to see demons as pitiful, future spirits as pitiful, because every spirit he saw was no match for his father, and Higuma could wish to forgive them, because he'd never been confronted by an overwhelming force of evil and never had something precious stolen from him. So really, he was just a big hypocrite. It's like, once he saw one that was bad, he was like, no, it turns out, like, he's his ideals mean nothing. Enma actually comforts Higuma when he comes back to the other world, and he's like, your ideals and compassion are not wrong. If all people could accept everyone else's behavior and could forgive one another, then the world would be at peace, and even the concept of sin might fade away. But that's not possible as long as people are human. At least, that's what a former version of myself concluded before creating hell. And then thanks to himself, and then my former self left the testament of their resolve and gave it form, the great King Enma. So an interesting thing here that seemingly this aspect of, the of God, basically, left behind this version of themselves who thought this thing about humans, and then they have that aspect of themselves has started to change his mind. It's a weird but interesting thing. But whatever, we're never going to see it explored. In the present, Higuma's fighting with Akagane. He manages to cut off his arm. It does nothing because Akagane doesn't have that arm anymore. It is made of mercury and stuff. And so he cuts into the guy's other arm and he's like, I managed to deflect the attack, but it hurt. Higuma, however, claims that he is not here to get revenge on Akagane. He's doing this because it's a Hell Warden's job. That is why he's doing this. That's why he has the resolve to do this. The fight gets broken up because White Smoke Guy shows up with another future spirit, Uin Kaseki, who drops these white balls of energy down to the ground, setting off explosions and basically breaking up the fight. Akagane is like, "Gonna go now, kid. But one day I'm gonna make you turn your back on your duty, and I'm going to kill you and send you to hell. Bye." And then some other Hell Wardens show up, and they're like, "You're gonna die if you go after him." And he's like, "Oh, you guys are," and then he collapses. Next chapter. So a lot of like confrontations take place in this second chapter. Ayaha is rushing to the scene where Higuma is. She sees the two Hell Wardens who have already sent Higuma back to his home to recover. We see Ingetsu talking with Uin Kaseki, and she's like, "I know your secret, that your smoke only affects future spirits with fewer years in hell than you. No matter how aggravating a spirit may be, if they're of higher rank, you can't make a move against them. And that's why you had me take care of Akagane. You're a hollow man, Ingetsu." And the snake that they're riding around on talks to him too. And then Akagane shows up, and he's like, I was just thinking about whether or not I should kill you, but I figured we would talk first, and then we'll see how things go. And Getsu's like, "I was thinking we should settle our disagreement, Akagane." And then we cut away over to Higuma. He sleeps for 5 days. They reattach his severed limbs because he can do that, because Life Force, Hell Warden. I gets really pissed off at Higuma because he wakes up and is like, "Ha ha ha, I thought I was gonna die." And she puts him in a Boston Crab, and he taps like a bitch. No one taps to a Boston Crab.
Yeah, that was Lance Storm's finisher. And that was a half Boston Crab.
See, if you only do one leg, it's way more devastating, obviously. Only young lions tapped at Boston Crabs. Ayaha tries to get more information out of Higuma. It's a pity that we never got to the point of Ayaha, getting used to this whole Hell Warden thing and not just being there to work as a source of just explaining shit, because that seems like most of what she has done in this series is just have things explained to her, because she is the normal person. She is the audience surrogate, and we didn't really get to see too much of how she was like as a character beyond being pissed off at all this, all the stupid self-defeating shit that Higuma was spewing. She points out the fact that she's like, "I've heard that, you're able to recover from this stuff because of life. You use Life Force to do this. So that means that every time that you go into battle and you use your abilities and stuff and you recover your wounds, that means you're spending your Life Force, and that means you're going to die early." And Higuma's like, "Ha ha 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 ha." And she starts to choke him, and he's like, No. I'm laughing because, you're expressing concern for me. But no, look, my family has been able to manipulate Life Force this entire time, so they actually gave us the Zaiju in order to work in conjunction with these abilities. It's not quite like that. I mean, yes, I need to use Life Force in order to recover from wounds and stuff, but it's a little bit different from what you think. And then he says that while he was asleep, he talked with Enma. So you see, I was like, so what you're saying is that what you want to do is capture every fugitive spirit, but if you're fighting them one at a time, you're going to die before you could ever possibly finish, so there has to be another way. And Higuma's like, "Funny you should say that. When I was asleep, I had a conversation with Enma, and we just see that conversation start. And it's like, are you seriously going to just and in the last chapter, all the fugitive spirits are defeated. It'll be just like Takamagahara, where they're just like, and then everything happened, and they won the battle.
They were all beaten. Those are some of my favorites when it's like, fuck it, I'm just blowing it all to hell. Everything was done at the end.
Was gonna be chapter 356 is now chapter 20. Series done. Yeah, so this series happened. Let's move on to Neolation.
Yeah, Neolation.
Horrible. These chapters are fast. Like it goes through a lot of shit.
It's so sad because starting with Process 18 fake news, they really made you think for a moment that we were starting a new arc, that we weren't just going to end it very abruptly. Because we meet a new character. Her name is Chinami, and she is a very passionate young high school girl who kind of voices her thoughts about everything. And because she's so overly energetic, a lot of people have kind of bullied her and referred to her as the loser tuber. Because she makes a lot of YouTubes.
Yeah.
And people think she's a dork. And we see that there's things where she kind of cries because, she'll put up a video where she pours her heart out. And then there are people who say, like, I get what you're saying. I like it. So despite being bullied so much and even stopping going to school, she's very passionate about this. And I do like it because she is sort of a weird girl. Like, she says bye by going, ciao, veni, vidi, vici. And everyone's like, what? You're a loser. Go away. But she's going,
also, we love you.
Yeah. And everyone's like, at least she tries, she's walking home, passes by a shrine, and it's like, ooh, I'm going to go see ghost spirits and stuff like that. Runs all the way up the stairs and just happens to encounter a secret meeting between a politician and the producer of a video company who's basically saying, hey, yeah, we're going to put out a ton of fake news about all of your opponents so that we can, keep you in power. Basically, a conspiracy going on. She encounters it and is like, uh-oh, I need to get out of here. But she steps on like,
oh no, a stick.
And she's caught by the guy. So what they find out, Yoko goes into school the next day. It's like, hey, Neo, you got to help us. He's like, yes.
All right, who's your missing friend? What? The famous YouTuber that I love so much?
I love it because he's like, I know your friend. I'm going to help him. Like, how do you know her? I made a deal with her to dress her up as a pair of dice and then push her down the stairs. And whenever she rolled has, which because her head and legs and arms are sticking out of it, I think it could only possibly end up in one of two different roles. She then has to go and ask somebody that question. And
the three questions that we see sampled, one of them is the one she asked, which is, how much would you pay me to go out with you? Which is an amazingly selfish sounding thing. So how much would you pay
also
me?
Illegal because she's in high school.
Yes, that would be compensated dating. Yes. 5, would you link arms with me and walk in front of your something? Maybe school, maybe home, something like that. 4, would you drink the leftover water from one of my bottles?
All very weird questions. I just love the very notion that he was like, he convinced her, like, hey, why don't you dress up as this giant pair of dice and fall down
the stairs.
And she was like, fuck yeah!
And I love the sound effect of it too, which is just bonk.
There's an entire elaborate thing about how he finds her because he uses cameras to pinpoint, like, oh, here's where she disappeared, but we saw this car and things like that. Turns out the guy in the head of the production company has kidnapped her and he's holding her hostage until, quote unquote, the finisher can arrive. And that's like their deadline. They have to save her before the finisher comes because you gotta kill her. And they do it. In that chapter, we see by the end of it that Daigo, Yoko, and Neo are a well-oiled machine at this point, and they're actually working together really effectively, which leads us to Process 19 then, My Friends and I. And yeah, they basically save her. It comes to a point where both Yoko and Daigo look like they're in a bad spot. So Neo uses his hacking, shuts off the lights. They came up with like kind of an impromptu night vision goggles that was pretty creative. Mm-hmm. That was like cool to see. And they get out.
I love the shot that's like the lights turn out so it's completely dark, and then Yuko and the girl and Shinami just run around the producer guys so they can stop them, so that they can get past him. And I love how imagine you're just like just
hey, you get back here!
What? I just heard something really weird. Go past me. Damn it! I don't know where they are.
We're in a hallway. I don't know. Just turn around. It's the only other way they would go. Yeah, no, they do all that. Brother Taz, even their getaway driver, showing that he probably would have been part of the group. But it doesn't matter because this is the end of Lation. There's a little bit at the end where they're like, hey, Tsunami, you help get back at him. You use your YouTube videos to basically show that all this guy's fake news creation was a giant conspiracy and bring him down, which is
also editing together a fake video.
Which is a very beautiful thing, a very optimistic to believe that you could stop fake news by pointing out that it's fake news, but it doesn't work that way. Anyways, life is a hellscape that we live in current day America, and Lation is ending. It ends at least without it ends on like the idea of like, and the adventures continue because they don't encounter Warden. They're still like getting ready to do that.
Yeah. So we see like the beast, a meeting of like the beasts all together and give out and sing there with Boogie and two other guys, and they're like, we heard about that guy. That politician that video editor guy got caught in this video, so I guess he's not going to pay us for that job we were going to do. Yeah.
So we get the idea that there were a lot more stories to tell, and I kind of enjoy these endings a little bit more because it doesn't feel like you have to force everything to the end. You kind of, as an audience member, can at least be like, maybe I'll imagine how the stories go from here. Because in my mind, I like to think Tsunami even becomes part of the team and things like that. But that's it. That's the end of Lation. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very good series, I think. It's just a shame it didn't catch on.
It took a little bit for it to catch on with me, about 4 chapters, and I think that might have been the problem, is that some people just caught onto it too late for it to really build back momentum. But hopefully we'll see more from this team that of Hirao and Yoda. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot going for the series in terms of there was interesting ideas, there were some cool moments. So I hope that we see stuff from them again.
Yeah.
This is the second series that they have worked on together, so I would hope that they would do something again, or rather, they worked on a one shot together and then they worked on this series together. But this was their first series proper, so maybe we'll see a new series from them, Run and Jump, in a couple of years. So, all right, let's talk about The Last Saiyuki, which, by the way, we have gotten a little bit of an idea now of how it's doing in Japan. It looks like it's doing and it looks like Yu Kimio might be doing better. So Nick knows how to pick them.
Nick, did you see last week's Yui Kamio as the main character running around because Black Kamio is running around and he worries she's not wearing any panties? It's the entire chapter. Oh, Teenage Renaissance David's still running, by the way.
Yeah, good for it. Okay, so
you guys need to start betting. Like, we need to start doing a stock tip show and just always bet on the inverse, like a sports betting show where I'm just like, guys, I'm going to tell you this once and one time only. The Giants will not draft a quarterback super high at 6 overall. They're going to go defense. Defense. Oh, fuck me. Why?
Last Saiyuki. Chapter 8, Allies. Ryunosuke has bonded with Koharu, which allows him to unlock more of the potential of the Nyoibo and use it better. He does some cool stuff in this spat that he has with Sai to begin with, such as taking control of his Nyoibo and using it against him, which is badass as fuck. He does stuff like, widening it out to use as a shield, and there's a cool fight scene that happens. He gets the better of Sai and he holds him the staff right up to his head and says, like, "You promise me that you're never going to bother us again." And he's just like, "You're not going to break me. You can test me if you want. You can, mutilate me like I did your father. You can do whatever cruel things you can think of." All Ryunosuke does is wrap him up with the extending staff and ask, you guys can make monsters materialize, so you don't need Koharu to do that. Why don't you just stay away from us? Sai tells him, if Koharu and I had been born as one being, then a kind soul like yourself would be suffering so much. And we have a certain monster we need to materialize. In order to do that, we need to open a lot of modes at the same time, and the only one who can do that is Koharu. And he tries to, get inside of Ryunosuke's head and say, like, uh, you know, you could become my ally. And then his head explodes as another staff comes shooting from behind them and blows him up. And we see that, he wasn't actually there. He was in a base hidden off somewhere, apparently using an old school video game console to control a copy of himself. I love that it's represented that he has infinite lives. It's a nice little stupid joke. So he sent a copy of himself instead. We see the person who blew up his head is not Ryunosuke's father, but a new character. This really weird-looking short man with bi-colored hair and a suit with a polka-dotted tie. And he is there with a girl who looks a little bit like Sailor Moon because she's got these, twin buns in her hair. The buns, one has a yin symbol and the other has a yang symbol in them. And she is me like, what the hell are you doing? You just blew up that guy's head. And he ignores her and is like, that's not a real person. That was a monster. He was, copying a person. And he says, like, look, I'm in the same profession as your father. Speaking of whom, he addresses Ryunosuke's father as Gohaku and says, why is Son Goku's other half here? When we go into chapter 9, which a lot of it is this vision that Ryunosuke has of not Koharu, but Koharu's previous life, basically. He passes out along with Koharu right after all the action is done, wakes up inside of his school, and when he sees Koharu's voice and goes into a classroom, there is a taller version of her wearing a mask and with, limbs and such. The mask is very similar and might even be identical, I can't recall, to the one we saw Koharu wearing in the first chapter in that flash forward scene. She explains who she is and then is like, I'm a memory of Koharu's previous life, and because the two of you have connected, I'm able to come here and speak with you. And then she invites him to play a game of quote-unquote Connect 5. I'm not sure exactly what game that's supposed to be. It seems similar to Go, but yeah. Amusingly, Ryunosuke beats her, and she's like, oh, come on! I said we were going to have a fun game. And he's like, well, I don't hold back when I play games with people, though. And she's like, yeah, but if I don't hold back, then I become all-knowing, so I have to dumb myself to stupid human level. And Ryunosuke's like, yeah, but I just beat you. So she gives a lot of explanation to Ryunosuke about story and abilities and stuff. And the main thing that she says is that humans are capable of doing a lot more than they perceive themselves of doing. The whole thing with Mo is a double-edged thing. They can make monsters manifest, but they can also grant themselves the power to reattach limbs, control their own cells, and destroy the monsters that they summon. And what my ability and what Koharu's ability is just the ability to open that up, give humans the ability to remember their true strength, and then they can come closer to the true human form. The change that you went through in the fight you just had was because your desire, Koharu's words of wanting to stay together, were the same. In order to fulfill your wish, your Mo opened more and you were able to come closer to the true human form. But, you weren't able to handle it all at once. That's why you passed out. So they talk a bit more, and they end up also going outside, and she shows Ryunosuke this scene of himself walking with Shige, chatting and having a good time. And she just says, this is the future you could have. This is a summer vacation without Koharu. We can do the same thing that the White Baku did to Shige. We can, just have you wake up and have you forget everything about Koharu and the monsters. You can have a normal life. You are You're a good person. You're a strong person. You could protect Koharu and everyone, but you are a child. I know that you think this is your responsibility, but you don't have an obligation to actually shoulder all of this stuff. You're just a kid, and Koharu and I care about you, and we want you to be safe and have a normal life, even if it means forgetting us. And Ryunosuke rejects this. He says that, look, even if I forget everything that has happened so far and try and go back, I mean, it's not going to be the same. And, look, the stuff that I told you before about how, Shige let me accept my mother's death and get back to normality, no matter how bad it is, I have to accept everything about my family in order to move forward in life. So tell me the way that Koharu and I can both have that normal life. She gets upset with him and says, like, you're not going to be able to do that until you get to the very end. And Ryunosuke's like, fine. And they start to have a childish argument because although she is older than Koharu, she's seemingly not a lot older. She's probably like, I don't know, 12 or something like that. And eventually she gives in and is like, okay, look, we don't have a whole lot longer to talk. She points up and says, when this solar eclipse has begun and once it's complete, then that means you're waking up. So here's the thing that happens at the end, basically. Koharu is going to open everyone's Mo at the same time. She will produce the 100th monster from the Tales of Momo. No matter what you do, that is going to happen. The ones who have K's ability, this is what we are born to do. And so what you need to do is not strive to prevent her from awakening people's Mo. You need to be able to defeat the final monster that will destroy the Earth rather than close all the Mo's that Koharu has opened. Humans can do anything. If you become a true human and defeat the 100th monster, you can probably release Koharu from her cursed destiny. Ryunosuke says he doesn't really understand, and she says, that's fine for now. Just remember, as you get closer to becoming a true human, at the same time, you lose more of your humanity. So don't forget the kindness you possess and the reason why you want to save her. And he wakes up, and we get a gag to end the chapter as he goes into the next room and he sees the girl that we saw earlier posing like a magical girl and referring to herself as Mighty Lingling, the Onmyo exorcist girl. And she gets embarrassed because she's been seen by this boy. I really like this second chapter, mostly because of the fact that this girl has offered Ryunosuke the chance to walk away, and he has said no. He is flat out saying, like, no, I'm going to take this on and I'm going to do this. And even though he's been given this big old, like, you can walk away from this and no one will think anything less of you. This is, in fact, what the sister you've just taken on wants for you to do. And he's still like, no, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be a hero, basically. So he has fully accepted on his protagonist role, basically. And there's a lot of other cool stuff in this that I really like. I like the fact that we're just getting this explanation of, like, yeah, so the bad thing's going to happen, and so that, I mean, we can't operate under the illusion that the bad thing's not going to happen because we already said it was in chapter 1. But here's what you can do about it. So it's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm dipping a little bit out of the series just because it's becoming weirdly more shonen-y with the new characters that I was kind of not super keen into, but I do like the second chapter as a way to kind of like give the hero reaffirmation about like kind of what his desire is, and even though it's dangerous, he's like, I'm gonna protect my new little sister.
It does seem to be a thing about like odd chapters and even chapters with this series. The odd chapters are good. It's like inverse Star Trek movies or some shit. It's weird.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to We Never Learned, starting course with question 108. Spirits on the Sand draw tomorrow's pizza bet part 2. So Asumi is very
next chapter is the same title but part 3.
Yeah. Asumi is very distant because, as we remember from last week, her family is closing the clinic down. Her dad's getting ready to hang up the towel, so she's very distracted with that. And she even is like,
she's so sad.
She's very distant in class, misses like a question. Yuego is like walking home with her. It's like, yeah, I've never seen you really get stumped like that. And he's like, are you okay? Is there anything you want to talk about? She's like,
everything is fine.
And then she makes up a lie. She's like, nope, stayed up too late studying last night. And then she's like, no, actually, the real secret is I couldn't sleep because I was thinking about you all night. He's like, stop teasing me. And she's like, uh-oh, it looks like it's going to rain. I have to get to work. Bye. So she runs off. And Yuiga passes by, who I didn't know who this fucking was at first until
I thought it might be Asumi's mother, because she's got a short haircut. And then through context, I realized, oh, it's two of the girls from the maid cafe.
Yeah.
Then again, it's like, out of the many different supporting characters that each of the girls have, I think the maid cafe girls are like the least established of any of them. So
apparently their names are Machiko and Homura, but if you had paid me $1 million to try to guess them, I would have never known what to say.
No.
So basically, from this, he finds out, like, wait, the maid cafe is closed today? You're doing like a nurse event tomorrow? Then that means she was lying to me. So he goes over and he finds Asumi sitting on this park bench. And he's like, what are you doing out here? She's like, hey, get the fuck out of here. You can't get sick right now. Actually, no, this is still Yuiga who just does both of those. And he sees that she's staring at that picture that she drew as a child of her being the doctor of the clinic. And it blows out of her hands. It goes flying into the water. And Yuiga's like, stupidly starts jumping up like, I'll jump into the water and save that picture. And Sumi's like, no, just let it go.
And then Yuiga's like, no, it's special to you. And she's like, no, just
let it go.
Just let it go. Yeah.
And they go take cover at like in a playground at one of those like little dome things. And she explains how the clinic's closing, how there's this big hospital built next door, and they've been getting less and less patients every day. And ultimately, it's a good thing because that facility has everything that can take care of those people. And as a doctor, he wants what's best for his patients, even if it's not him. So Asumi is clearly trying to rationalize all of this. She's like, yeah, he never had all that stamina, and patients have been coming. So, maybe it all works out. And, Yuiga puts his hand on her head. And she's like, well, you tried to make me cry? Remember, I'm your senpai. He's like, no, it's the opposite. Looks like you've been doing a lot of crying all alone. And, she starts trying to insult him like, oh, you think you're cool, you jerk, you player, you horny toad. But then she breaks down because this is actually very sad and she doesn't know what to do. And we see that all these layers of facade and pranks that she throws up are kind of breaking down. And she's just sad because she is completely directionless right now and doesn't know what to do.
It's really disheartening, honestly, because the entire time we've known her, it's like this is what she has dedicated her life towards. And having had it recently reinforced, like this is something that she's wanted to do basically her entire life. And now it's completely out of her power to do anything about it. It's just going away.
Yeah.
So
she's very sad about that. Eventually they leave because the rain stops. And she's like, hey, just, forget everything you heard today. But, thanks for coming to find me, I guess. There's a little bit of a moment where her mother then spots Yuiga and is just like, oh, I'm glad to see things are working for you guys. He finds out from this conversation that he's a volunteer surgeon overseas. And he's like, well, why do you live overseas? And we don't see the end of that conversation. Instead, we go over to the maid cafe where it's nurse day today. And she's like, well, can't bring my personal stuff into work, so I gotta bring good energy today. And Yuiga's back there. He's like, hey, Asumi, let's play doctor together. She's like, say
phrasing.
Yuiga is really bad about that. Every week he forgets it. So,
I'm sure there won't be another easily mistakable thing that he does this week, though.
Nope, he's gonna get it right this time. So, chapter 109 then. Yep, we already did that. We open up with a flashback to a decade earlier as you see Asumi's father handling...
Who has apparently always looked old.
He's always looked fucking ancient. And he's spending time with all the people at his clinics. And it's funny because... Or not funny, but it's cute because you see all these different relationships he has with all these patients who are clearly he has a long rapport with. And it's very nice. And we see Asumi watching from behind a curtain, just smiling the whole time. She's very excited. Then we see basically the moment when Asumi's mother was getting ready to leave, and her mother kept saying, like, wouldn't it be better if I just stayed here? And Dad's like, no, you've got something you want to do, and we both have to do the work that's calling for us. There's no reason for you to be here just out of an obligation. And her mother's still worried, but Asumi's like, don't worry, Mama. You only have to you have work only you could do, right? So I'll handle the clinic. And she's wearing a doctor's coat. And
she's so cute.
It's very adorable. And then we see her in her regular doctor outfit, which honestly wasn't as fetishy as I was worried it was. There's still a mini skirt to it.
But like, I could imagine someone actually working in a clinic wearing this.
Yeah,
so
it makes sense. So she's like, all right, we're gonna do a patient checkup doctor thing. This is our weird doctor fetish maid cafe now. And as soon as people go up, she starts like fucking just beating into them immediately, being like, you stayed up too late last night. I can see you've been eating food again, haven't you? Bad food. I see it. Like, it's not even like everyone's like, wow, what a great diagnosis. She's really not even like giving people instructions how to get better. She's just dressing them down. Basically, she's like, you said you weren't gonna go to the golf course, but you clearly been spending too much time on your back's fucked up. He's just like, oh shit, she got me, but I find this so hot.
Scold me more. Step on me.
Basically, it feels like why people are staying in line. But we do see, because she's listening and everyone's like, yeah, it's just like when I was going to a clinic as a child. It was nice, having a neighborhood clinic where everyone knew who you were and everything like that. They're like, it's too bad there aren't more places like that nowadays. And Sumi thinks back to all those kinds of memories she had watching her dad. It's very nice. She has a sweet moment there, and she's like, hey, I'm calling in that favor. You have to let me keep this costume a bit longer. Which is weird, because I'm like, isn't the costume just a coat? Everything else seems like normal ass clothes. You know what? Whatever. I guess I'm not a costume store professionalist, I suppose. So she goes to give him like a personal checkup, and
there's a shot where it looks like she's kissing him because it's one of those like from behind, so you can't see their mouths. But yeah, she's just kind of like looking in his mouth with a little flashlight.
And she's like, oh, we're going to listen to your heart. And he's just like, oh, jeez. There's a weird moment where he's like, I shouldn't look down her shirt. And I was like, how can you see anything down her shirt? It's like a collared, buttoned-up shirt.
It's amazing because you see her in normal shots. And yeah, the shirt goes basically all the way up to her, above her solar plexus. And she's wearing a tie over it as well. But then when she leans down in front of him, somehow the gap becomes wide enough that you can see a little bit of cleavage. So that, I don't know how much of the shirt just disintegrates between shots, but it's kind of incredible.
But then she twists it, and she puts the stethoscope on him and lets him start listening to her heart. And she starts talking about things, how she's like, I thought you were just messing with me at first about everything. And doing so, it rang true with all these memories I have from being in the clinic, all these strong feelings. So it'd be nice to sit in this chair one last time. And she starts getting very open about how everything about this clinic has meant everything to her ever since she's a child, even to today. Everything about this has been the most important thing. And that if she loses this place, she's not going to have anything. And you can start seeing her heartbeat is getting more like rapid and loud as Yuega's kind of listening to it. And she's like, I understand it's not the right motivation maybe to be in this. Maybe it even kind of takes me away from being a respectable medical student if I'm more interested in this clinic than actually helping people. But maybe I should just let go of all these med school things completely. And then Yuega like scoops her up, and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? And
he's carrying her bridal style. Yeah. Like, it's just...
And he lays her down on the patient bed, and he's like, Senpai, I had no intention of helping you create a nice memory. And he lays her down on the bed, and that's where the chapter ends.
She's just like, the fuck?
What are you doing? But I like it. These two chapters have been very, very powerful. And there's something oddly, I think it's just the fact that it went with something different, and it strikes where she's like, I'm going to let you listen to my heartbeat. There's something oddly romantic about it, even though it's not a romantic thing, but just this idea of being so open and earnest and raw with the other person.
Yeah.
Letting yourself just be ripped so casually open, especially for a character who kind of covers herself in so many layers of facade like her. So it was a really nice chapter, I thought.
When you get down to it, the stuff that happens between them is not actually all that fetishy, but there is also something that feels very intense about it. I can definitely see, like, especially for someone who would be like really into like shipping these two easily getting really, really freaked out by this. Like, oh my God, and at the same time, of course, this series has really made me feel for Asumi because we've always known, yeah, this stuff means a lot to her, but the fact that she could work for this job and have it taken away completely for reasons outside of her control, and now she's just kind of falling into this pit of despair is really, really, really heart-wrenching. And you know, I'm sure that Yuiga is going to do something to help her fix it, see a new path forward or something. But yeah, for right now, it's just very, very sad.
I do appreciate this is maybe the only time I've ever seen a harem story where it never like when these chapters kind of happen usually when it's like, oh, the fifth girl is having her moment with the main character, you're always kind of like eye rolling like, sure, let's see how this goes, like, because you just know that they don't have a chance. But maybe it's because Shueiga is so unconsciously kind of not even thinking about his feelings towards any of these girls really, except like kind of this broad stroke feeling kind of towards them, that just the intimacy they're able to have.
50 chapters or so into the series, you realize, like, wait a minute, these girls are, wow, they keep on like showing a lot of skin around me.
they keep trying to like have moments with me, holding my hand. No, I do kind of like that. This is one of the few times like a side character like this has had this moment, and you're like, you don't think like, oh man, maybe this is going to be the one final girl, but you do kind of think like this is much more of a genuine moment than I would expect this kind of character to have with the main character.
The strength of the series is that Yuiga has bonds with these girls that go beyond like, oh, they could end up being
They're
the girl
so pretty.
Right. He bonds with them because they actually do care about each other on a level other than that. So you can become invested in something beyond just like, is this going to be the girl that he ends up with? And so, the stuff like, with Kurisu, or the fact that, he helped her out, the stuff with Fumino helping her with her father and all that stuff. It's like, even if you don't care about them as a romantic couple, you can, get into the stuff that is actually going on in those little stories. So, yeah. All right. Let's move on then to Dr. Stone. So nothing happened this week. Nothing important happened. So everyone arrives at Treasure Island, or whatever you want to call it, where the Soyuz capsule has some platinum in it. And before they actually get there, a storm blows in, basically. I'm skipping over some stuff here, but I'm honestly like, there's not a whole lot really important there, except for the fact that they establish that, well, there are going to be people on this island, and we know about that because Soyuz is here now. Soyuz the bald guy, not Soyuz the capsule. And Chrome is worried, like, hey, what if that Y-Man guy, the guy who contacted us, is a member of the tribe on Treasure Island? We don't really know anything about this. There's also a brief moment of intensity where the chief confronts Soyuz and is like, why did you keep this secret for so long and all this? And he's like, no, I'm sorry. That I'm glad that you shared it with us. He realized like he's being an asshole to him for no reason and snaps himself out of it really quickly. It's a nice little detail that he realized like, no. I mean, I shouldn't be blaming you for that. So, there's a big moment where Soyuz gets emotional. Anyway, moving on. We get a little bit of a tour of the Perseus and the stuff that's inside of it. Interestingly, 2 ship cutaways in the same week. There is a joke right before this because Yuzuriha makes a note of like, I kind of like to see, how this whole ship was put together. And immediately Kaseki and Senku and Ryusui overhear her, and Kohaku and Nikki are like, oh, you did it. Those boys are going to go and show you all their stuff now. And they're like, oh, you want to see the boat that we made? And they're like, yep. They never pass up a chance to demonstrate all the stuff that they've been working on. Yuzuri is just like, I'm used to this. Senku wants lectures for 5 hours how rockets work.
I do always love like the dead-eyed response Yuzuri occasionally gives of like, oh, this is the hell I've lived before. I've grown accustomed to it.
This is the person I've entrusted my life to, and I have to accept that. We also see, some of the little aspects of, life on a ship. Like, we got seasick, but we've got a remedy for seasickness. And then a storm blows in. Ryusui doesn't give a shit about it, though. He's just having a little latte that Francois has made for him. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it, guys. I've been through plenty of storms and sailed through vessels between this. There's nothing to freak out about, so everyone keep calm. And then Senku comes running in with his eyes all bugged out and his face all demented, and everyone's like, oh, he's freaking out, though. And Senku's like, no, I'm not panicking. It's just that this is our chance. It's like, we have to take advantage of this to sneak onto the island in the cover of the storm, because they won't have our scientific tools. They won't be able to see through this, but we can. And sure enough, next chapter, Z equals 103, Light of Hope and Despair. They are able to breach the coach basically almost completely uneventfully. There is a shot of Ukyo looking over the sonar as they pull in, and then when the storm clears up, Ryusui congratulates everyone on a job well done. Yo and Magma try to rush in onto the island, Yo to find buried treasure, and Magma to murder the islanders. He just got an axe in hand, like, off to murder the islanders, and Nikki kicks them both in the nuts. And yeah, it's amazing that she does that, because she does it with the same leg. So
good for her.
Yeah. Senku addresses everyone and says that the scouting squad is about to move out. And we see Suika, who comes out of a porthole below decks and rolls up onto the deck. Yeah, I called it. But she starts to roll out onto the deck, but Ryusui throws a barrel on top of her and sits down on the barrel before anyone can spot her. Ryusui says that the scouting party is going to be very small. They're just going to send out Senku, Soyuz, Gen, and Kohaku, and everyone else is just going to stay on the ship. Although Kohaku brings up the fact, like, I know that I was sent because, I've got really strong eyes, but Ukyo's got really strong hearing, so I would think that he would want to come too. And Gen says, like, well, he was really occupied with the sonar. He's scanning the sea floor. Once four of them are gone and are climbing up onto the shore, Ryusui releases Suika and lets her out, and everyone's like, oh, what are you doing here? And Suika's like, I just wanted to be helpful, and I can be a scout. And Ryusui's like, no, you're a stowaway on this vessel, and we're basically just going to hold you here until we can return you to the port that you came from. And so until we are able to do that, you're just going to sit here and behave yourself. But Francois comforts her and just whispers in her ear, saying that, look, this could be a really dangerous mission, and he doesn't want to risk a child's life. He's just concerned about your well-being. And Ryusui's just like, don't speak for me! I could say that if I wanted to. But Suika is still upset, so Taiju comes over and is like, hey, there's plenty of ways you can be helpful. So, the storm got the ship all dirty, so we'll clean up in the meantime. And she's like, yay! And Ginro is like, what? Why are you happy about swabbing the deck? Ukyo has finished scanning the floor, and he's like, there is something weird down there. So if someone has a chance, can you go swim down there and check it out? And Ginro's like, yes, I will do that. And everyone's just like, you just don't want to clean the ship. Fuck you. But he swims down there, and he discovers that the seafloor is covered in petrified people, which is a rather terrifying sight. I mean, we've seen plenty of it, but I think that there's something about like the way that their expressions, the way algae is growing all over them, that is really, yeah. So he reports this, and Ukyo immediately gets freaked out, which Yo's just like, well, we've seen those statues everywhere. And Ukyo explains, no, listen, the timeline doesn't make sense. The petrifying beam swept across the earth, and at the time that it did, this island was uninhabited. It wasn't until much later that the astronauts' tribe propagated. When did the statues Ginro saw down there get petrified? And Ryusui suddenly feels this sensation coming from behind his shoulder from something up on the cliffs, a figure watching them, and he realizes we're being watched. And he demands, "Who are you?" And then we cut away to the scouting party who split up because they can't get in contact with the Petraeus anymore. So Gen and Soyuz head up to the top of a cliff to try and get better signal, and so that they can also view the ship through a telescope. Soyuz looks at the ship and he freaks out. Gen picks up the telescope and looks at the ship, and he sees Ryusui's petrified head as he has fallen on the ground, like his arm has broken off too. Everyone on the deck of the ship is petrified in mid-motion, several of them with, terrified expressions on their faces. Like Ukyo's in the middle of like shooting his bow. A bunch of them are lying on the ground, and Gen freaks out, and we see elsewhere on shore, Suika is hiding in a tree, and she's like, Suika doesn't know what's going on, but just at the last second, that kick from Ryusui sent me flying far away, and we see that, Ryusui's actually in a follow-through motion from having punted her ashore to save her.
And his arm's broken off.
They can put people back together, though.
But maybe they don't do it, and he loses his arm.
I'm not too worried about the actual consequences of all of this. I do like that there's the bit at the end where Senku and Kohaku are exploring around because they have no idea what happened. They're just like, "Look, seashells! So the people here know about the revival fluid. All right, well, let's begin our scientific investigation." So it's like just a normal chapter ending of Dr. Stone because they have no idea what's just happened. But yeah, I mean, so clearly someone has deliberately used the petrification beam. It seems like. So a new challenge for everyone to overcome, and that seeing just like everyone refrozen on the ship is kind of shocking, and it really gives you a sense of like, oh wow, okay, so there might be some really bad stuff happening here. So
it's also unnerving too because there's quite a few people on there who were never frozen in stone. So some of them you're like, oh, like they're not going to have too much of an issue with it. But yeah, like when you look at like Koseki and Chrome and people like that, you're like, oh, for them, this is terrifying because you know that you could still keep a consciousness during this to some extent.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Yeah.
What's going on with this group of islanders who apparently petrify people. So,
all right, let's jump over to the 7 Deadly Sins.
The one chapter.
Yeah, just one this week.
Series this week. Yeah.
Chapter 308, Epilogue 2. So last time we got a whole thing about how Melodious is probably gonna have to go, and that's basically what this chapter is all kind of about. There's a moment of Bond laying in bed with Aline, and she's like, something's happening, right? Like Bond.
I love that before we get into the plot relevant stuff, they basically just turn to the reader and is like, yeah, we just had sex.
Basically.
Which I don't know if I can remember reading another shonen series just do that, or just like, these two characters just had sex, just so you know.
It's 7 Deadly Sins is also unique. It's the only series it's like established firmly what the ships are. They're like, here are all the relationships. A lot of them are gonna get married
and have children.
But yeah, Aline's basically figured out that like, oh well, Bond tells her like, yeah, Melodious is gonna have to leave this world, but I kind of like that almost everybody in this chapter we find it is smart enough to be like, yeah, something's going on. Mm-hmm. So Bond even explains, it's like, look, we can't stop it, and I don't want to. And I like his explanation. He's like, he's watched every stupid, crazy thing I ever did for you. So I'm going to let him do whatever he's chosen for himself. Like, I believe that Melodious knows what's best for himself. And it's very sweet. Aline starts crying because she's like, it's really unfair, though, that all of us have kind of got this happy ending, but Elizabeth's not going to have hers. Yeah. So,
and she's like, why, shouldn't we tell her and tell the others? And Bond's like, well, the captain doesn't feel like talking to anybody about it. Besides, I mean, a lot of them figured it out already.
Yeah. So we get like a whole sequence of stuff that happens. They go to visit this one place, and there's a bunch of talking going on. There's a character I do not remember at all who apparently
His hair's
has some,
stupid.
yeah, he has some relationship with them. But he's like, oh, cool, the Melodious and Elizabeth hanging out together. When's the wedding, tee-hee? And there's even like a quiet, like sort of smirk from Melodious, like a foreboding one. But basically they're like, hey, we're gonna, update our everything. So the women all basically are like, we're gonna prepare the tea, and the guys are gonna go prepare the broth. So we basically cut in between these two things. There's a little bit of shenanigans so we can have some more fun, like one last adventure with the team. But eventually everyone's like, hey, so, are we still going to be the 7 deadly sins after this? And Bond just openly says, like, yeah, they're not as thick as you think they are.
Hawk seems to be the only one who doesn't know what's going on, basically.
Yeah, well, that's
and he's Hawk,
Yeah. So yeah, everyone's kind of got an idea about it. And we'll go over to the ladies who are also kind of having this talk about like, oh, won't it be nice one day when like all of our children will gather here and be friends the same way we are. She even talks like, oh yeah, but Elizabeth's and the captain's children are going to be adorable. And they're like, maybe you should take a step back on that. And she's thinking like, I really only think the captain's suited for being a captain or a tavern giver, someone that we could see whatever we want. So, like, he's not going to go away, is he? And everyone kind of all quietly is saying like, yeah, we all know something's up. And Elizabeth just responds, yeah, I know. Melodious is going to disappear from this world, but it's okay. And she seems to have a pretty chipper attitude for it, considering what's about to potentially happen. But we're going to see. We still have more chapters of this to go, a 3-chapter long epilogue at least. So I do like this sweet little chapter to kind of get into this. And I do like the idea that almost everyone's pretty much like, something's up with Melodious. I'm not stupid.
He keeps on like being really insistent about us doing his stupid bar, like
his
midlife crisis that he has been running for so long.
It's not gonna work. I don't know what to tell you.
Nobody likes it. Like, we just do it because like we need a place to hang out, and he insists that we help him out with his fucking bar. No one likes it. I do really like this epilogue so far. I like the fact that the 7 deadly sins, you buy the fact that all of them have this bond between them. It's something about the way that the series has gone so far that you've just been able to see like this camaraderie between them just from seeing them go through so much to help each other out. And so the fact that now they literally can't do anything to help out their captain who's going to go away, and they just have to accept that, and they're really upset about it, seems very genuine. All right, let's move on to The Promised Neverland. First is chapter 132, Punitive Expedition. So the queen has gathered all the different region house lords and dukes and such. And basically, what we learned from this is that all the raids that Norman's group have been conducting on farms and stuff, they are under the impression that they're actually being conducted by rogue demon bandits. And so they're sending out an army to make an example of them, basically. They're going to find the supposed demons responsible in a punitive expedition, and they shall take care of it before the Tifari. And we see that they are sending out a lot of demons. There's a lot of them.
There's a couple.
There are several hundred at least, including multiple really big ones. And they've got banners and stuff. They're marching in file. A human spy spots them on the move and sends out an owl to deliver the word to Norman, who is illustrating this via chessboard where there is a normal team for the white side, and the black side has like 36 pawns all scattered around them. And he's like, yes, this is exactly what we wanted. Attacking the farms, causing the citizens' dissatisfaction to rise, leaving the rulers with no choice but to take countermeasures to subdue the bandits. And they think that demons are the cause. We will use this to first divide their numbers. He just like grabs a handful of black pawns. This is how chess works. No wonder Norman couldn't be beaten at chess if he was just like, and all your pieces are gone.
He's like, if I slap them all off the table, then nobody wins except me. I have all the pieces.
Ray's like, I remember what those pieces were. I have baby memories. You can't make me forget what they were.
Yes, but you also are not smart enough to play chess. He's like, try me. King to e7. Checkmate. They're like, pieces aren't even on the board yet, Ray. I'm thinking 17 moves ahead. I've already beaten you. No need to play this game. I've already won.
Just gets up and walks away. I beat Norman in my head.
I'll take leave of you now.
And that is how Norman won every match with Ray.
Did I ever tell you about how my brother was getting really into chess? So he was playing an online chess game.
Oh, no.
And the first thing that's great that happened out of it was, so there was AI in the game, and it had different levels. And the easiest level was, because everyone had a profile picture, the base easiest level was personified as a monkey. And the monkey had its strategy was makes erratic moves with no strategy. And my brother lost to it. He fell into the fool's checkmate basically on it, and realized like, well, crap. And the monkey just laughs at you when you lose. My favorite is he would play online, lost to a 12-year-old who called him the N-word and never played again. I'm like comprehend the idea of beating someone in chess and a child calling me the N-word afterwards. I'd be like, yeah, I guess I'm done playing chess too.
I would think that I would never play any game if I played it online, and then a 12-year-old did that. It's like, well, this community's stupid. Would have quit Yu-Gi-Oh! Way faster. Actually leads me into a very short story. So there are various programs that fans have used over the years so that they can play Yu-Gi-Oh! Online. Back when I was, like 14 or 15, we would just like say what our cards were over AIM, but eventually people so that you couldn't cheat because, you would actually have to, have something that would draw the cards for you and would reveal to your opponent what they were and stuff. So
you mean we reached a point where we couldn't just trust I was about to beat you, but again, you've drawn the last card of Exodia?
We played on, an episode of Weekly Manga Recap where we had to do like a filler episode or something. And like Gav, I think, built you a deck that destroyed me. And I was like, this is bullshit. The deck that I built for that, I tested it out online for a little bit. And I played this guy who was using, like Black Feathers, which was a big meta deck at the time. And I was just playing, Skull Servants. And I beat him with the deck. And as I was, saying like, no, I just, attacked you with this giant King of Skull Servants, and your stupid Armor Master has its effect negated, so you don't get battle and damage immunity, so I win. He's like, your deck is lame, lol, and leaves. And I'm like, I just beat you though.
That's the satisfied one when they have nothing. It would have been much worse if he had beaten you and then was like, "See you later, N-word," and left. And you're like, I guess I'm never playing this game again.
It's just toxic as hell.
What a power move to win the match and still call your opponent the N-word. It doesn't even come from a place of anger. It comes from this weird place of bad sportsmanship.
It's this weird place of hatred, and you have to wonder what kind of upbringing this child is going to have. All right. So Norman is confident this plan is going to work because they've divided up the attack force, which importantly leaves the nobles with much less forces to defend them because the Defari is coming up. But when the royal family and 5 region houses all gather at the imperial capital, they will be shorthanded with their security. And that means that they will be able to kill the royal family and the aristocrats 8 days from now. And everyone's really excited about this. And they're like, yeah, we're going to make our next move. Henry brings out, well, what are we going to do about the evil-blooded? And Norman says, I've already come up with something. And Dawn and Gilda are approached by, He had like a weird name, ninja guy, whatever. So
Oh, Zazzy.
no. The guy with the headband, the guy who's
Oh,
really fast. So
yeah.
he has
Fuck
a
him.
weird like ninja style name or something. Anyway, Ray and Emma have gone through the doorway, and they thought that they were going to the Seven Walls, but they have arrived at the Gracefield house. And in the next chapter, which is titled "Let's Play," um, they find, of course, that the house is not exactly what it seems. It looks just like the house, but like, it's completely empty at first glance. Then this odd, small black sphere bounces down the stairs, lands in front of them, and an eye on it opens up and goes, "Let's play." Emma stumbles backwards and falls through a door on the ground and is transported somewhere like on the second floor somehow. Ray tries to go after her, and the walls start distorting around him. Uh, when the distortion clears up a little bit, Isabella is there along with a bunch of the siblings. She embraces Ray, who calls her mom, which is aw. And she says, "You've grown so much." And he's immediately like, "Who are you? No one ever shows me physical affection. You're you're an imposter."
You can't track Ray.
Everyone's like, let's play, Ray." And all of a sudden, he's Kid Ray. He's little Kid Ray, like even younger than when they were at the start of the series. He's like,
no! The truth is, I have my baby memories, but I forgot my kid memories.
You'd think that someone with perfect memory would remember the time that my mom and all of the kids turned into skeletal demons and chased me around the house, asking me to play with them. But I don't. Oh, this is what everyone must feel like all the time, forgetting important details like this. Also, I'm being chased by skeletal demons. This is terrifying. Ah!
Time to bravely find Emma. Ah! She'll save me.
Who put this pee on my pants?
Someone peed in my pants. It could have been anyone. I don't remember who, though. They're like, "Don't you have baby memories?" He's like, "Not for
baby memories. Don't get memories. You have to fucking keep up." It was you who peed in my pants, you imposter. Anyway, Skeleton's chasing Ray around. Emma is racing through the hallway. I really wish we had like a Scooby-Doo sequence of her just coming in and out of these various doors for a little bit, but that we don't get that quite. But she does say that every time she tries to go through a door, she just falls back into it. Eventually, she hears. She calls out to Ray and just like, I have to find him, and she just shoots at a door and smashes through it. And somehow this leads her back to Ray. So good job, I guess.
You figured it out. They're like, "Arr, you figured out the puzzle of the mansion. The clues were there all from the beginning. Like the giant sign you all missed and turned left at that said, 'Just break things with an axe.'"
Us would have ended very differently if she had just followed that sign instead of stumbling around the Hall of Mirrors.
You just break your way through. You see, the Shining would have been a lot faster if he had just, chainsawed his way through the head maze in one straight line.
So they fall basically forever through the super distorted house while various skeletal children and also toys and robots chant, "Let's play, let's play, let's play." And eventually Emma and Ray fall into a pile of toys, and Emma's like, "Ray, when did you get smaller?" And Ray's like, "I don't know." "Oh, you're small too." "Oh, you're right." And then they're back to normal. Just like, okay. And they're surrounded by toys who are going, "Let's play, let's play." And Emma's like, "Wait a minute. You're all from that meeting I had with you." Because they wanted to play the first time we talked. But I came from the entrance this time, and we want to make a new promise. So what's going on? Where are you right now? And the toys say, "I've always been at that place, past the 7 walls. Try and find me. The 7 walls are inside here." And a little hatch opens up, similar to the one at the hideout that they lived in for several years. And there's a ladder leading down through it, and it's like, oh, it's inside here. So I was actually a little bit disappointed by the freaky visuals in this chapter. Like, it starts off with like demon skeletal children. It's like, oh, this is gonna be freaky, and then the house starts to distort, but it's in a way that you kind of expect a building to distort. and I feel like it could have gotten way trippier. So
Yeah, I mean, if you were gonna go for like a weird horror chapter, there was definitely a lot more room you could have gone to.
mm,
But I don't know. We'll see.
yeah.
All
Uh,
right.
a lot to say because there's a lot of just like, well, I guess we'll find out what happens next time. So
All right, let's talk about Black Clover, page 202. I don't know where the chapter title is. From Another World. There it is. So, last time, Finral had Nero jump onto a soldier, or rather onto his chest. It was like, hey, bitch face, follow me, dick face. And we're going to see that eventually happen. But right now, Yami is teamed up with Charla, the elf that has taken over Charlotte's body, which is very convenient that they both have the exact same starting like syllable in their name. It's very convenient. And basically, he's whooping their ass. There's not a ton to talk about. It's a big battle chapter. There's like a moment where Yami fires out one of his dark slashes, and he finds out that dark magic seems to be the only thing that this devil doesn't just like block and take or whatever.
completely shrug off. Yeah.
He actually seems to be deliberately avoiding it. So they're trying to do it. But eventually he's like, oh, it's kind of cool. But hey, I have this grimoire now, so I'm going to use it. And he casts some crazy world soul magic, and he summons what we don't really know at the time, but we find out later is like a giant swarm of like leech monsters that are kind of all gathered together on this weird, very gross looking kind of creature. And it's trying to swallow them. But before we go see that, Finral is taken over to the skull of the demon from the very start of it by Nero. There's another one of those Sephiroth in there, and he's like, hey, put these magic stones in this shit, and take the stones from here and put them up in this statue of a person up at the very top of the Wizard King. And the last two go in his eyes, and suddenly magic activates, and we find out in the next chapter, page 203, breaking the seal, that person's coming to life. But first, the leeches are attacking people. It's eating away at their magic. It gets Yami's left arm and basically like tears away at it. He's like, hey, I guess now you won't be able to use your blade and everything like that. It devours life. It devours magic specifically. The only real consequence of that is that Asta gets overwhelmed at one point. But he's fine because he doesn't have magic. So I guess that's how that works.
It attacks people by eating the magic inside of their bodies, and that causes damage to them. So because he has no magic, he's fine.
Yeah.
So it's like, of course, Asta's fine. He's got the key to defeating this thing. Of course.
He's always the counter. They note that the leeches are basically filtering down through the Sephiroth they're in. So Nozelle's like, all right, well, fine. You guys stay here and handle this. I'm going to prevent this thing from just killing all the people in all the other like chambers. So that's his focus. But then we cut back over to Finral, and the first Wizard King, the prince, has been brought to life. And Nero's alive too. And Nero's a girl in like a ballerina tutu thing.
With horns.
Yeah. And of course, Finral's first thought is like, you're bangable. And she just gives him like a dead stare.
I really like this exchange because he's like, oh, wow, I can't believe you're a girl. If you told me sooner, we could have gotten a hot date. And she just glares at him. He's like, sorry.
I'll shut up now.
Like that is like perfect. It's just like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Wrong time for this. Sorry.
You know what? I'm just gonna be quiet. So they decide that they're headed over. They're gonna use magic, and basically Nero like pushes Finral off the statue and is like, "Hey, just wait there. Thanks for reviving us, but we're headed off to like stop the bad shit from happening." So it looks like they're headed off to encounter and intercept the devil.
There's some stuff in these chapters that I do quite like. I mean, having Nero be revealed as, someone who's connected to all the plots that's going on, stuff's like, yeah, okay, fine. But I do actually like the fact that she maintains the same personality that Nero had demonstrated at different times, just like this thing is important, just fucking do it, and then is really dismissive of everyone who doesn't get to the fucking point. I like the fact that Finral got to do something, and I like the fact that this other world magic spell is actually really intimidating. It's, it looks really terrifying when he first summons it. It has a terrifying and immediate effect, and it works in a way that seems bizarre and dangerous. The fact that it eats the magic out of people, and as it just touches Yami and it really fucks him up in the part of him that it touches. So, also, and I like the fact that it's like, okay, this is this devil's default magic, but then when he uses this grimoire, there is an actual reason for him to want to have it because it allows him to do something completely different. So overall, I actually quite like these 2 chapters. So you can't be mad at me, guys.
Yeah. Nick's on your side now.
Let's move on and finish up with One Piece. It's like that final sprint at the end.
But it's all uphill because these are dense as fuck chapters. It'd probably be easier just to abridge to the important stuff.
940 sparks of rebellion. First important thing that happens is that Law has separated from the group that he was with because he's pissed off that Shinobu accused Beppo and the others of giving up their plans. We find out that Shinobu and Kanjuro actually have no idea who Yasu, who he actually is. He just kind of talked to them in a way that indicated that they were familiar with each other, and they were too embarrassed and polite to go like, "Who are you again?" Aikido. The important thing that he goes over with them in their conversation is he just says like, okay, well, so this is what's going on. All right, well, now that we've learned about this battle, look, if just let everyone know that if he needs help, we will fight with you. And as he leaves, he does his whole, thing where he just flatters everyone. And of course, it's like Usopp and Nami and, this one random woman who are very easily, enamored by his politeness and flattery and stuff. We get to know Yasu a little bit better as you see him going around the poor village and helping people out, giving them what little food that he has, and he is referred to as the saint of the village. And we also learned that he had to actually give up his daughter Otoko because she was sold into a job in the capital, and she sends back her earnings to him. So there's that connection made, and it becomes very important this week. Luffy continues trying to train while all the different guards get sent after him. They fight into the night, and then they're like, all right, that's enough. They aren't getting any food. Of course, they're just left in the middle of the ring. So Hyogoro tries to learn from Luffy, like why Luffy's trying to do all this stuff, learn this technique so he can defeat Kaido. And Luffy's like, well, I don't want any of these guards listening in while we talk. So hang on. I was like, and knocks them out with Haki. Anyway, so he explains the whole Four Emperors thing. Hyogoro recognizes the name Gold, knows who Gold Roger is, which shouldn't be surprising because he's been in Wano before. At that moment, Raizo shows up. He is hiding inside of Caribou, who is the person whose cuffs unlocked with the key that he stole. And so Caribou is part of this team now. He's just gonna belong for the ride. He's going to be the Mr. 3 of this jailbreak, guys. You gotta get used to it. Luffy distrusts him until Caribou says, I've changed. And then he's like, okay, as long as you have, then I guess you can work with us then. And Caribou's like, well, that was easy. Raizo talks up how, who Hyogoro is, like, he was once the greatest Yakuza boss in all of Wano. And Luffy's like, wow, so this old fart was great in the past. Even worse than this dude. Like, they've done some stuff, like, they bring up the stuff they've accomplished. Raizo talks about who's talked with Kawamatsu and so on. I think for the only time in these 2 chapters see what Chopper's group is up to is they're still riding around on the crocodile, and Big Mom's just like, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm tired. And Chopper's like, why is she here? And we get into the next chapter where things start to really move forward in terms of like, okay, it looks like something might actually happen soon now. It's chapter 941, The Star of Ibisu. there is a fire that is going on, a wildfire in Curry, which people are reacting to. Someone goes to speak with the Shogun, and he's like, "No, leave me alone. I want Komurasaki back." And the advisor is just like, listen, Ushimitsu Kozo has been apprehended, that mysterious thief who has been operating and has been alluded to recently. And the important thing that you want to know about is his true identity. When he's told this identity, the emperor freaks out about it. And so like, all right, well, he must be made into an example. So put him on light scrolls around the nation. And Kyoshiro says, like, I've already made the light scrolls and got them all set up. So we're all set to go. And so I've took it upon myself to prepare. Then we shall have Ushimitsu Kozo die along with Komurasaki. And the emperor says, yes, we'll have it be a ritual funeral. The two biggest stars of the city dying together. An ironic twist of fate. I intend to be in attendance of my horse. So all this stuff is going on. There's going to be a big, we're going to set this guy on fire thing happening. Over at the prison where Luffy and Hyogoro are, Raizo and Caribou very obviously snuck them a lot of food because Luffy is super fat now and Hyogoro's got a gut on him. And Queen's just like, did you guys get fatter? And Luffy's just like, let's go!
Let's do it, bitch! Go time!
It's sumo time! Oh! Just how obvious it is someone stuck us food.
No one fed us.
Oh man. Shuten Maru is where the hideout, Shutamaru's hideout is where the fire was set, so he's got to react to it. This was all manipulated seemingly by Kinemon and Dogstorm in order to basically force him into actually taking action. And Kinemon's just like, look, we've got to have Ashura working with us. So he's kind of just justified seemingly giving up Ashura to everyone. So then we cut over to where Zoro was hiding out with I keep on forgetting Komurasaki's real name. I'll get it eventually, I promise. And Otoko and Brook comes across them as they're waking up, and he's like, yeah, so I actually was like hiding out in this shrine, and whenever people would come by, I would just go, oh, I'm hungry, and so people were leaving these offerings and stuff. There's a whole thing because like the girls had cuddled up to Zoro while they were sleeping, and Zoro is just annoyed by this. Also, I love the way that Brook reacts to it because his eyes bug out, but he doesn't have eyes, so just the darkness within his eyes bugs out instead.
Or it's his hair, I'm not sure.
It's hard to tell. So, you know, they're like, Brook's like, I'm so jealous of you that you had this beautiful woman sleeping next to you. And Zoro's just like, we were just sleeping. And Komurasaki's like, everyone is so besotted about the thought of sleeping next to me, so was it exciting for you? And Zoro's like, oh, okay. Well, you're weird, aren't you?
He's like, someone thinks highly of themselves.
I hope that she maintains some aspects of that, because like you got to hold on to these scraps whenever Oda does the whole like, yeah, this girl's just going to be the same woman that I put in every arc. It's like, okay, please keep this one aspect of her character that makes her unique, please. You know, where she just has that, you know, thoughtless narcissism to her. It's, you know, like she doesn't get exactly what the nature of it is. So that's fine.
Yeah.
They learned that Ushimitsu Kozo was going to be put to death. And Brook's like, yeah, it turns out that he was, you know, this actually quite popular in Ebisu Town. He's, you know, something Yasu. And Zoro's like, wait, Tono Yasu, that weird guy who was following me around? And Otoko's like, that's my daddy! And she immediately runs off.
That's the perfect voice for her. Oh my god. Just that 2-second clip was such a hell to listen to, and I feel like that's the perfect voice that you're just like, God, I kind of hope her dad dies.
No, my daddy's dead. So So she immediately runs out of the shrine in order to try and save her father. And immediately Kumurasaki's like, "No, you're wanted too. You'll be put to death too." And she's just running full breakneck to go after it. Kumurasaki's like, "Oh, thanks. I gotta go stop her." And Zoro's like, "No, you're not gonna be able to protect her. Hold on." And Brooke is just like, "Don't leave me here," and runs off after them. So it's just a train of people chasing each other back into the capital. It's for a girl rushing to try and save her father, whom she has been separated with for most of her life. It's a bizarrely comedic scene.
Yeah.
There's this entire funeral procession for Komurasaki, people weeping over her while she's dead, or they think she's dead. Meanwhile, Toneyasu is gonna get crucified and pay for his crimes, and while they're mingling in with the crowd, Nami and Robin and Sanji and company, Shinobu and Kanjuro realize, seeing him with his hair done up like that jogs my memory. The fact that he's a thief is the least of his worries. He is Lord Yasuie, one of the daimyo who stood alongside Lord Odin in support of the Kozuki clan. The daimyo of Hokumai, Yasu the Hedgehog. He was once stern and strict, and that's why we didn't recognize him. And we cut to where Toneyasu is, and he has seemingly had his, I guess because he had his top not taken out, so his hair is springing out, so he resembles a hedgehog. And there are people in the crowd who recognize him as Lord Yasuie, and they're like, "Oh my God, we're so happy! We come on, spare him, show him respect." And Yasu is maintaining his normal personality of being cheerful in the face of impending doom, and he says, "Listen, I guess you haven't forgotten about me, but your pleas will go unheard. Orochi will not let me go. But first, I have 2 things for which I need to apologize to you all, and 1 thing I wish to say to that fool Orochi. And once I have made my peace, I intend to go into the great beyond laughing." And he has this big grin on his face, and we're intercutting between that and Otoko running to try and be with her father, crying while she also has that demented laughing expression, the same as her father's on her face.
Yeah.
So
I definitely agree with you that this is a good thing that One Piece is finally done, because it does feel like we're pushing things in a faster direction. It feels like we're making some forward momentum towards something, which I like. I'll be honest, I haven't been super into One Piece in like the past couple months, just because it's felt like 1,000
gets the point.
It feels like I'm learning 1,000 characters and 1,000 bits of lore when like the core of this story has already been firmly established. So it's nice that it feels like we're moving to something.
Yep. All right. Oh.
You ready, Nick? You ready to wrap this bad boy up and go on into that dusty old sunset?
All right. Favorite
like
character.
The filthy whores we are.
Favorite character. Favorite chapter.
I'm gonna wrap mine up real quickly, because it's We Never Learn, and it's Asumi. They're kicking it. They're knocking it out of the fucking park every week with this series recently, and I'm so glad to see how they've developed her.
100% behind you on Asumi. Really felt for her in these chapters, and like some of the stuff that we've seen. Love the shot of her as a little kid in her like mom's doctor's outfit. It's and now her dream has been shattered into a million pieces by the harsh stone of reality. And my favorite series, I'm going to go with Dr. Stone. First chapter, not so great, but the second chapter is such a big, shit.
Yeah.
Game changer, with some good character moments in there too. So, yeah, really, really looking forward to where those 2 series go next week, especially. So.
And it's worth noting the audience picks were Dr. Stone for their chapter of the week, and Toga as their MVP, which I totally get. I totally get Toga.
Big chapter for Toga.
2 big chapters for you.
Having 2 chapters to cover for each series, for the most part, gave us some good stuff.
What's astonishing, this is mind-boggling to me, because we've been going on for about 3 hours, and I vividly recall a period of time where we were constantly pushing 3 hours per episode, and I'm sitting here, maybe it's just because we're getting older, and like the passage of time is weighing on me. But I feel like fucking death. I'm like, how did we ever at one point be like, every week it was like 2 hours, 30 minutes, 2 hours, 40 minutes?
I think that it was because there was less content we had to cover in that time. So we were able to just relax and like, sure, we can go on a fifth wrestling tangent. Why not?
I'm like, Nick, you remember Rene Dupree and he had that little fucking poodle he brought around everywhere?
And he did a stupid little dance. And for some reason, he teamed up with Kenzo Suzuki when neither of them had anything else to do.
I think they won the titles at one point.
They won the tag team titles and they feuded with Rob Van Dam and Rey Mysterio.
Oh, man. SmackDown was a weird place in the mid-2000s.
Remember when John Cena was a heel and he feuded with Brian Kendrick, who was called Spanky?
And he had his muscle Bull Buchanan, better known as B Squared.
B Squared.
And I think another guy was part of his posse too. Like Rodney Mack was like for 3 weeks part of his group as well.
And then they split them up. So, no, you're going on a different brand now.
Or when they thought they were going to make Crime Time and John Cena into a stable and then just abruptly didn't do that.
It's like, no, Crime Time is way less important than you. Never mind. That was one of the many, many different examples of John Cena is feuding against a guy who has a stable, so he has to team up with a tag team for this 1 month so that he has people who are willing to help him when they come out to interview. He did that with the Usos when he was feuding with the Wyatt family. So, anyway, that is going to do it for this week of Weekly Manga Recap, guys. Thank you for joining us for this double-packed episode. We will probably not return for a regular episode until quite a while from now, actually, because next week there's no chapter because it was early this week. The next week after that there is there is nothing because of Golden Week. So there's not going to be any Shonen Jump until the week of the 12th of May. In between that, I'm sure that we will probably take the time to put out like a bonus episode or something like that, so watch out for that. But if you are purely watching just for the chapter recaps and everything like that, we'll see you in like 2.5 weeks. Thank you for joining us this time. When we return, we might actually be on a different day of the week because my schedule is opening up again by the time that we're going to have manga to discuss. So keep an eye on Twitter so that you can find out exactly when we're going to be recording the show. Your hosts are at Roloti and at Nick F. Time, and the podcast account is at WMR Podcast. You can follow the show live on smashcast.tv/Roloti and twitch.tv/Roloti. And you can, of course, check out our archives on YouTube, on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, and on iTunes. If you would like to send us feedback, you can do that via email. You can also drop us a question for one of our Q&A episodes that way, and you can suggest manga for us to read via our Discord server, where Ninja X3i has set up this entire thing where you can go in there, you can check out recommendations that we fulfilled, which ones people have already asked us to do, and you can chime in and say, yes, do that one. And there's a whole thing that they maintain, including each week you can go in and say what your favorite character of the week was, what your favorite series of the week was. It's a very good way to get the community involved. So go check out our Discord and check that out. And there's all sorts of other chat rooms you can do on there as well. Special thanks to Patreon, to Infamous Planet, to Steve Man. He draws boobs in a lot of different places.
Damn straight he does. That's my boy.
Yeah. And that is it. Next time we will probably talk about Climber, the manga recommendation we're taking.
We're going to do that. Nick, this is a very nerdy weekend because between Endgame, huge episode of Game of Thrones, the new Magic set drops tomorrow. They just put out a new update for the mobile game I play that's a crossover with Fire Emblem. I'm in heaven, Nick, with nerd shit. So much so I'm a little embarrassed. So next time you see me, I might be a rough and tugged dude. The draft, which is like the nerd weekend of sports, I might be like a rough and tugged dude who's like abandoned all of that behind me. And I'm like, no more. I've become a cool person now. I ride it on my motorcycle and I do wheelies on it.
And everyone at the card shop looks at you and are like, you fucking dork.
Get out of here, nerd. All right, that's good, dude. Bye.
Bye.